Is there volume on this?
Oh, yes, sir.
I can hear you guys.
I
Can
can.
you hear us, Wes?
Yep.
Yes, we
clear.
can hear.
But we can't hear him.
Hear us.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Right? Sorry. Yeah, some type of.
Again, Wes, try and talk.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
There you go. All right, now you can call to the meeting of order now.
Awesome.
Good evening. I call the meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. Happy early summer. Before we begin, as you can see, our chair, Wesley Holmes, is remote, and I need to read a note and then we can proceed from there. So please note, the chair Holmes will participate in the meeting via video conference from the site listed below, which is located in Columbus, Ohio. The meeting agenda will be posted at the video conference site, which is accessible to the public. Anyone wishing to address the commission from the video conference site will be provided with an opportunity to do so. Wes, is anyone present with you at your location?
Nope.
No? Any other matters to address regarding his location?
No, that's good.
Great. Moving forward then. Well, welcome, Wes. I hope all is well in Ohio.
Thanks, everybody.
We
Yeah.
have established quorum with enough
Yeah.
head counts. Do we need to take?
No, I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Lee.
Present.
Commissioner Redskins. Yes. Commissioner Snyder. Here. Commissioner Katz. Here. Commissioner Pietka.
Here.
Actually, Vice Chair Pietka. Chair Humboldt.
Here.
You have four.
Excellent. Next up is the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Everyone please stand. The count of three. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up is public comments on the public comments on items not on the agenda. And we have two. First up with
Yeah.
Jim Wing. Welcome back.
Yeah, for the record, I'm Jim Wing on Milverton Road. A little bit of history. When you reviewed the street configuration for State and Main intersection, there wasn't a good solution at that time. Well, about 20 years ago, both the Traffic Commission and the BPEC felt the same way. And at that time, staff came back with a plan, or sketchy plan, basically a State Street, a one-way from Main to First. And then all of what's that brought the pedestrian crossing and et cetera like that to a very reasonable and under control. It didn't stick too well cost-wise, this type of thing at that time. And because of the lack of pedestrians at that end of town, there are only 4 places to eat down there. Now there are 18 places to eat in that area. And that is kind of the pedestrian hub of downtown Los Altos. And that's kind of why it's doing something that intersection becomes more important, because it's pedestrians that have the most problem down there. So you may want to have a future agenda item to go ahead and have staff, if nothing else, show that old design. I can't remember that much about it, but it's the concept is to switch State to a one-way, and you could add parking and do things like that. Another agenda item is that soon you will be reviewing the changes to Foothill Expressway, and of course the most dramatic change for Los Altos is the fact that the corners at Foothill and Main, Chevron corner, and then also Foothill and Edith, they're going to become square corners. The free right turn lane slip turn is going away. Now, that presents a great deal of congestion in the short zone between First and Foothill Expressway, on both sides there. So the only thing that probably even works there to keep that congestion down is to have one lane for right turn from First to the new right turn on the Foothill Expressway, one lane for straight through and one lane for left turn. Now, the right of way does exist. Actually, both intersections, both need that the same way. But the challenge will be, or the comments to be, primarily are to make sure that the Foothill or the county takes responsibility for making this change. It's not cheap, and I would hate to see Los Altos have to foot that bill to relieve congestion. So that is kind of thing as you go through the reviews. I would encourage you to at least discuss that with whoever from the county is reviewing the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Is there any questions for Jim or?
Just Jim, real quick, on that one way to State Street, which way was the one way gonna go?
We're going west, starting at Main and then traveling to First Filter Stateway. Yes,
Okay.
we're going west.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to clarify. Yeah.
Next up is both Tim and Carol.
I'll remain seated in the.
Bigelow, yeah. And you have 3 minutes. I forgot to understand. I'll start a timer.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We're Tim and Carolyn Bigelow. We've made our home on Langton Avenue in North Los Altos since 1992. We live near the segment of Los Altos Avenue between El Camino Real and Laux Avenue, where the sweet shop is. We presented our concerns about speeding traffic along this corridor to the council last November. We have walked around and talked with 80 to 100 of our neighbors on Los Altos Avenue and nearby who share our concerns about the speeding traffic. We had a neighborhood meeting with Gabe, our city manager, and Stephen of the engineering department. They were extremely helpful in listening to our concerns and discussing possible solutions. We're aware that the plan to improve the crosswalk on Los Altos Avenue at the SFPUC intersection is for ADA compliance, but does not include any provision for traffic calming. Since November, our lead neighbor, Lamley, learned that Los Altos Engineering planned to conduct additional studies of our corridor. If they have not yet been done, we would like to know when they will be done, and we would like to review the findings with engineering when they're available. We look forward to collaborating with city staff as needed to arrive at a reasonable traffic calming solution. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Any clarifying questions from the commission? Thank you for being here, Sharon. And last up for public comment, we have Stephanie Singer.
I'd just like to bring the attention to the Complete Streets Commission that with regard to safe routes to school and work on the Homestead corridor and the Grant Frontage Road, the city council voted in a 3-2 vote to make riding on the sidewalk illegal. And we'd like to know, those of us who've been working on safe routes to school issues with the city for the last decade would like to know how we're going to prioritize extending the 2-way cycle track all the way to Christ, so that we can make sure that the kids are in a protected bike lane or on the cycle track, not being pushed out into the street in one of the most dangerous triangle areas that we've got, going up against Homestead Foothill Expressway and traffic coming off of 280. Thanks.
Clarifying questions? Thank you, Stephanie. And that brings us to the end of public comments for none on the agenda.
I just wanted to say something before we go to the next one.
Please.
I didn't mention Commissioner Banerjee during the roll call, so I just want to make sure that, she was counted and she's absent. So I just want to make sure that's, I didn't say her name. So.
Next up is the consent calendar. So we need to approve the minutes of the regular meeting from May 28th. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Motion from Tom.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous consent. Moving on to discussion items. We have two today. Which circles back to our meeting from last month. So the first up is our 2025 work plan, goal number 5 for the Complete Streets Strategy Plan for identifying gaps and priorities. So we have a working group between Chair Holzman and Commissioner Lee, and they'll provide an update. Or George, gentlemen.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. Tony, don't let me stand in the way for you, but also I figured I might say a couple things. One of which is, the work is ongoing. And I would say really appreciate Tony's just openness to jump in and support this one. We are asking obviously for some extra work to dig into an extensive document and background and history here with CSMP and the Safe Routes to School. And it's been great to do that, but appreciate the help, as well as the other folks who are working on other things related to 2025 work plan on the commission. Maybe just a few things really quickly. Give me 1 second as I pull up some of my notes here. Yeah, the work is ongoing, but we wanted to give a first report out on some of the first things that Tony and I found. First couple of key takeaways are that the Complete Streets Master Plan document is a great resource, and just want to call out that it's pretty great that the city and city staff put it together with help from the commission. And another point to be made is that we've got a great amount of continuity, realizing looking, back at the document that we still have a bunch of folks on the commission today, a bunch of folks at city council who were part of this work, not that long ago, back in 2021, thereabouts. And so it's great that we can still build on a lot of the energy and work that went into that with some of the same folks, including a lot of support at city council with the same folks as well. A couple of things that jump out in going back. Well, actually, maybe I'll take a step back and just say what the specific sort of exercises that we're going through. And I think we want to be very focused on, as we complete the work in 2025 and as we sort of work towards 2026 and beyond, we're trying to make sure that we are doing everything that was sort of put forth as recommendation and agreed on by all the stakeholders to that plan. And if we find anything that is sort of out of step with our understanding of what should be done, we should feel free to make adjustments to the plan. That's actually something that's outlined in the plan. It's obviously a living document that should reflect real street conditions and real experiences of Los Altos. But basically just make sure our work is tied back to the great work that happened in this plan. One of the things I noticed as we go back is that there was a huge amount of community input in the plan. That the plan references hundreds of community members, contributing and participating for many hours of their own time in shaping the plan's recommendations. So that was really really cool to see, and really appreciate that this plan doesn't just reflect commission and council. It reflects a lot of input from Los Altos, other Los Altos. One of the things that Tony and I noticed as we go through the report is it does look like we are making progress towards completing all the Safe Routes to School that were envisioned in the plan. But we wanted to know we wanted to explore with city staff and commission if there's a way to go back and see what was done sort of prior to 2024, when most of us, when myself joined the commission, and prior to Art and Steve and others, Ida, working on with the city. Well, I think Ida, actually, you might go back as well. Any records that we can have of work that was done specifically towards Safe Routes to School and Complete Streets Master Plan would be great to have. Yeah, so that's one thing. A couple other notes, and then I'll yield the floor to Tony. The plan does have a list of recommendations for high priority bikeways, a lot of which are related to Safe Routes to School. And I think it would actually be a great exercise for our group to actually create or update a map that shows all the work that we've done and what we plan to do going forward. So I think that could be a good exercise for our group, and just I'll put that out there as something that we can discuss and talk in detail about, including some of the specific elements of what's sort of recommended under Complete Streets Master Plan and Safe Rest of School. Let's see, what else did I want to shout out here? There are some qualitative elements we noticed as well. There's a list of what's called 6 E's, which in many cases are sort of like encouragement, education, enforcement. And we want to make sure that we're thinking about those and putting work towards those, as well as the actual safety elements themselves. I think we want to obviously do things like get people using the networks, get people using the networks in an educated way, and sort of in a safe way, above and beyond the sort of physical, striping and physical elements. And I think other parts of our work, I know some of the work that Steve and Tom are working on is sort of like oriented towards some of those pieces. But I would love for that to just be part of our conversation, as well as we think about things we can do sort of through the end of this year and into next. Let's see. I think those were the main things that I wanted to call out right now. But if I missed anything, happy to talk through or discuss any of that as well. And Tony, maybe yield to you and see if you want to add anything about what you saw in your own read as well. And I think I took a couple of those from you too. So want to just make clear that that's not all just me. Tony's been contributing a lot to these points as well. But yeah, let us know what you think.
So just a couple points to add. First, I agree with everything was said. It would be really good to know if staff is maintaining a list of things on the master plan that are not complete. Is there such a list?
Prior to our arrival, no.
Okay.
So for us to create that list will take extensive time for us to go back and look at what has been completed, what has not. And our staff has not kept those type of records.
We did some spot checks and we found several things that were not done, and many things that happened, obviously, but there's still some that are outstanding. So
Yeah, we would have to do a lot of research in the fact that we have to recreate what the logic was as to why those were not done at that time.
Okay.
And a record is not best prior to our arrival. I should say prior to Art's arrival, a record has been spotty at best.
Okay.
So we would have to spend a lot of time to recreate all that.
And the other thing that we were going to suggest is that feedback on where we are from the community would be good. In particular, for the safe routes to school, we were going to suggest reaching out to PTAs of the various schools. And unless there are better ideas, Wes and I are going to undertake that.
Given your initial analysis on identifying the gaps, you guys see yourself doing this for like some more like updates per commission meeting for a few more cycles, or where are you guys at with your planning?
Something we have to discuss is whether staff is going to be able to undertake where the gaps are, or whether we're going to do it. It is a lot of work, I agree.
Right now, we have several really big stuff going on right now that our bandwidth is not there, and probably not for another 2-3 months.
Okay.
Stephen, can you just speak up a little bit? Because my hearing is less than perfect.
I don't want you to hear. No, what I'm saying is this: for the next couple months, our bandwidth is very limited because there are a lot of major stuff that we're trying to get out and accomplish. That's going to take a lot of our time. We probably will not have any bandwidth until probably about September, October at the earliest, because we're going to take care of these certain stuff that we've been kind of holding off because we're trying to get our annual streets out.
I think okay. I can raise my hand. Yeah, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah, I think won't speak for Tony, but from my perspective, not necessarily looking for, creating a whole bunch of extra work for staff. I know folks are quite busy, more along the lines of maybe even directing this towards Ida as well. And Ida, apologies, I'm not sure exactly, at what point you joined, and started supporting the city, but just any existing records that we have of work that was done, maybe even looking at the first half of 2024, anything that wasn't Jardine, or anything from 2023, or before that. And even there, not really looking for like a huge fishing expedition, but just like anything that might be readily available that we're aware work was done on a particular, set of intersections that relate to safe routes to school. That would be great to see if it exists. And if not, yeah, it doesn't exist, then it is what it is. And I think, maybe we could, yeah, go ahead.
Let's go through the exercise and see
Yeah.
what record we are able to reproduce.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank
I'm
you.
pretty sure we're not going to have an extensive record on this,
Yeah,
but give us a little bit of time so that we could try to say what we do have.
yeah,
and what we're
absolutely.
able to create.
Absolutely. And I think from my perspective too, like I'm perfectly willing to, Tony mentioned it too. And I think it's a worthwhile, use of our time. I think we should be realistic that all of us have, limitations on the amount of time we can put into things, but I can work with Tony and see if there's a way that we can go, physically visit some of the intersections. And the list is not, never ending. There are some ones that we know where work has been done, and there's ones that we know there hasn't, and there may be an opportunity for us to just go do like a quick spot check exactly, and see what's been done there. Because I think one way or another, if we're going to complete this plan, we got to have some level of even just like yes or no, hasn't been done, and it doesn't remain sort of in need. And I think that's part of our mandate from the city to do this. So we should figure out some way to do it. That's all from me.
I was just gonna offer an idea, which is,
Steven, thank you.
oh, thank you.
Steven.
Sorry. I'm not sure who gets to announce me. Thank you, Scott. Just a thought, which is that when staff is ready to come back with that list, and it sounds like that's going to be October, November, given what's on your plate, I think there's a lot of knowledge that's on some of the members, either notes or that we remember, people like Suresh, Stacy, me, who have been on for a while, know about projects that were proposed that never actually either made the cut or for whatever reason got left off. And I think if we're aware when that's coming to the table, which we should be with some notice on the agenda item of when it's going to happen, that together as a commission with staff, we could come up probably with a short list. That makes sense. And what's really gives me great optimism was about the budget that we have going into the next fiscal year, given the fact that the city's revenues were up. And it looks like from the numbers in the town crier were correct last week, that perhaps we got more money than we anticipated, and maybe there's some opportunities there.
Yeah, some of the money that is there is because we didn't spend all of it the prior year. So it's a carryover. Please keep in mind that as we're looking at some of these projects that was programmed in the past, the priority has changed. Council has given us very clear direction and mandate what they would like to see. And so based on that, that is what we're trying to deliver, especially like on the Pinewood Street project. They would like to have 5 areas that is safe route to school, try to bring connectivity. So that's why you start seeing like sprinters, bringing a long stretch. All the long-term plan is to complete from Foothill all the way to El Camino. We're trying to bring connectivity in these some of those locations. We're trying to complete our complete student master plan, but unfortunately, it's going to take some time.
Yes.
Correct.
So I just want to get questions for Tony and Wes. Your ask of the commissioners is, and going back to what Commissioner Katz was saying, is to come back to you with what project that we know of that might have been completed. Is what you were asking?
If you've got any documentation, yeah.
Okay. Can I point you to first? I'm not sure if it's too much, and we can certainly help. is to go through the last 3-4 years of the agenda packets from the meetings and the agenda items. There's been significant amount of work done prior to Art and Stephen coming on board on the Complete Streets Master Plan. In fact, we went through at least 2 years of significant work where a bunch of work was completed around Almond Elementary, Los Altos High, Oak Elementary, I believe Berry Avenue, what's the name of the school? Santa Rita, West Portola, Egan. So there was a lot of work done. So if you look at this, the map, all the safe routes to school maps, it's in the Complete Streets Master Plan, the marked, and then the list of streets that were identified. Some of them were targeted for resurfacing, some did not, but even if the resurfacing was not done, a lot of school routes to school elements were completed, including signages, the crosswalks, I believe also additional bike and no parking signs. So there was a bunch of this work that was completed, and the plans do exist as part of the meeting agenda packet. This, I would say, going back to 2021, 22 timeframe, right? This is before, I guess, Art and Art, you started when 2022.
2023.
23, yeah.
So, I think when we, Scott.
So I would suggest those 2 years, so 2021, 22, 22 meeting agenda packets, and you'll find a lot of the information. If you're not able to, let me know, and I'll try to find.
Thank you, sir.
Nope, that's a great lead. We can definitely look at that.
Yeah, because the Complete Street Master Plan was completed in 2022. Yeah, we started in 2020, 21 and 22 were completed. Immediately, a bunch of streets work were done. And I remember, in fact,
Nice.
I was part of the subgroup that worked on kind of reviewing the 90% plans with the city staff to make any adjustments, and we came back to the commission and approved a whole bunch of things at that time. So it's worth going back and looking at it. So that's one. The second point I wanted to make was just again tying back to what I just said is separating out major projects, especially resurfacing projects, which I think we're embarking on now as well, with certain just projects that require just signage changes and restriping, right? And going through the master plan, I think we need to look at it from that perspective to identify gaps, because obviously the staff right now is busy working on a lot of resurfacing projects this year, right? I think most of them, but correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, I think pretty much almost all the projects, there is some resurfacing element associated with it, except maybe one or two.
Yeah, they'll
El Monte and a couple that are just right.
they'll
but most
have
of
a
it,
safe route
yeah.
component to it.
Right, and I think the concern I have is there may be some projects that we may just be ignoring without, because we're only targeting streets that we are targeting for resurfacing and that kind of fits in the CIP budget as major items, and maybe not identifying certain streets that may require just restriping to put in some safe routes to school elements. So I think that's where we want to identify the gaps. So I think those are 2 points I wanted to make. I don't think that's where I think the gap analysis needs to happen, is because I don't think we're actively looking at those. Obviously, we're identifying the streets that have major resurfacing, and we have this 5-year plan, right, that we put together. But a lot of those, they're the city council's sort of directive for us to focus on safe routes to school improvements, but we're tying that too closely to maybe resurfacing and not looking at streets that require no resurfacing, but just safe routes to school enhancements. I'm saying that because our focus is on getting the budget taken care of and not doing the little things. And maybe they'll fit in the budget pretty easily without having major, so that's, anyways, I think I make my point pretty clear. I think you get it. And I try to focus on that.
Thank you, Suresh. Can I ask a quick question? This might be an ignorant question that I should already know the answer to, but when we talk about projects that might not need to be done in tandem with resurfacing, is there an easy way or any way to like identify and separate out those sorts of projects by the types of work or the types of design or safety elements that they include? Or is it just like we know that this work can be done without resurfacing, and that's the only difference?
If I may.
Yeah.
A lot of the elements that is required for us to put those safety elements require us to restripe. And for us to go ahead and restripe, we would have to grind out the existing striping. And if you're gonna grind out the existing striping, if you don't do the resurfacing, those grinding of the road, gonna have a ghost line on it. And it's gonna make it very confusing for a motorist to drive in that area. So you would not be advisable. That's the reason why we're adding a lot of the element as part of our annual streets is we're gonna go ahead and remove all the old striping by putting the annual resurfacing on it. It will get rid of the ghost lines, especially when the sun's setting, so that we could go ahead and put all these safe route to school element. One element that is in next year's budget is actually going through and restriping a lot of the roads that the lines have faded to maintain existing safe routes, existing striping, existing stuff. Is more of a maintenance type of stuff. This is on top of what our street maintenance does, which is take care of the existing infrastructure. So the stuff that we're talking about right now is major projects, but there are other things behind the scene that is not really reported on a daily basis of maintaining the RFP, the radar, dynamic radars, detectors, and gambit of other stuff that is part of the safe route to school.
Yeah, and I think that work is critical, and glad that you guys are doing it in the background, right? And I think what we are trying to figure out is, okay, let's say we have safe routes to walk or bike maps for each of the elementary schools. Let's take an elementary school, for example, right? Now, obviously, those routes were created with a bunch of inputs, with the consultants working on it, with looking at the traffic patterns and then talking to consultants talking to the constituents to see what routes people take. There was all those inputs taken. The question, I guess, is, so we have identified these routes to schools. Is for us to go back and look at saying, are these routes prepped? In fact, have we done things that are necessary to make them safe routes to school? Are there gaps, right? Obviously, when they identified assuming that the traffic patterns is in fact safe, right? But do we have all the elements in there? And some of them, like you said, may not come up for resurfacing or any of this stuff for the next 4 years, 5 years. We don't know that, right? So the question is, do we want to go through this and identify any priorities that may not at all require resurfacing, that may have fine stripes now, but they don't have safe routes to school elements in them? What is the process to identify those, right? If there are no gaps, great. Now, if you've done the analysis,
There's plenty of gaps out there.
yeah, we all agree on this. So I guess that's the process we're trying to identify the gap. This may take a few months to get, and I think that's the goal of what I think the analysis of the gap is.
If one thing I may suggest is this, it's very difficult for engineering to go in and try to address a gap that's a small gap, a small little like putting up a sign or putting a little stripe here and there. That is not very efficient for us. If there's a way that we can make a big project out of it, so we could go ahead and use all our resource instead of trying to chase after these small little things, that would be my recommendation. So I understand we have a lot of gaps. Eventually, we will fill all those gaps. But if I may, given the fact that the council has asked us to bring connectivity of the safe route to school, instead of going back and looking at those gaps, yes, we do need to identify it, but at the same time, identify areas that we make a big project out of it to address those small little things so that we're utilizing our resource more efficiently.
Yeah,
like a
Bill, are
bundle?
you saying that you want to like bunch up all the little things into one project, or are you saying that we want
Well,
other?
like case in point, one of the areas I'm looking at, Miramonte, is considered a safe route to school. It's one of our major road. We do have gaps there. It's also very narrow in nature of a lot of the roads. Let's look at something like that and say, okay, how do we bring improvements in that area? So not only are we getting rid of the gaps, but at the same time, what are some of the additional things we could do to make this area more of a connectivity? Because we have some coming up all the way up to St. Francis, I believe. Then when you start going more west, the road narrows and the safe route to school element is kind of blurred. So there's gaps here and there. So let's look at that and say, hey, we can have a decent project out here. We can bring safety elements into these type of projects, and we can bring this connectivity, because that's one of the council really wants is stop jumping around and doing little stuff here, little stuff here. That's leaving too much gaps. So let's look at how we bring connection from point A to point B. So let's look at that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think we're on the same
Yeah.
page. I'm on the same page.
Yeah. So-
Sorry, well, I'll let you, I've been talking a lot. I'll let you go. You want to say something? Go.
Oh, yeah, no, actually, I was even just like thumbs upping, but I was gonna say, yeah, I agree as well. I think that's consistent with even what we think about for complete streets and safe routes is like, yeah, they should go from point A to point B. And I think there's value still in doing the exercise of finding out where the gaps are, and then we can take that analysis and see, is this work worth prioritizing to fill these gaps versus like a bigger project? Probably the bigger projects are going to win out, or the connective projects. But I think bringing a little bit more up-to-date information about even just where gaps are is helpful for me, and maybe helpful for the rest of the commission to understand like what work remains to get to the finish line on these projects, and to help address safety issues across these networks. So anyway, that's it.
Just to let the commissioners know, for us to go through the exercise and try to figure out what was done and what was not done, we're ultimately going to have to go out to the street and actually physically look to see was this done or not.
Totally.
So for us to go back and look at just the plans may not be as efficient as what you were hoping for. It might actually be worth our effort and maybe more efficient. So physically go out there and see, okay, here is what the master plan says. This is what we have identified as being there. That might be more efficient than trying to go through the desktop exercise and try to look for plans, which we may or may not have.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Totally. Can I say something? Yeah, thanks, Stephen. Yeah, totally hear you on that, and I suspect you're right. One thing I was wondering is, in the interest of like not duplicating stuff, I wonder if there's opportunities from time to time to do almost like a ride along, where I would be perfectly willing to stop by and see an intersection if you guys are like already going out there, not try to create more work for you guys, but maybe just take a look.
It's something that we always do before we start going out to the field is we actually use Google Earth.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too.
Yeah. What are the it's not always
You
complete.
gotta look at the dates on this.
Yeah, but at least it gives us a good reference point of where we need to be.
Will you be able to let us all know when you're gonna meet at a certain intersection so we can all meet there?
If you like. I mean, yeah, I'll be more than happy to invite you.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Benjamin's idea first, the initial thing is to go back to those agenda packets, and that's where all those projects are, so. It's on the website.
I'll take a look at that.
they're on there. It just takes time to go through each one, so
Totally.
that's why we have a working pair that can do that kind of thing, so that would help the city staff. But if you guys could do that, and that would be great.
There's another point I was gonna make was, so we have these safe routes to school maps. That maps were created as part of the Complete Streets Master Plan. We updated the maps during that process, master plan process. And that precipitated two things. One is, okay, those maps that we feed to the community saying, these maps are for your kids to use to bike and walk to school, right? That's one. And then the second thing is we created the initial master list of projects for us to work on, right? I think the master list of project, I feel confident that you guys have reviewed it, and we have a new prioritization for the next 5 years. And did you guys get a chance to look at that list at the end of the master plan and sort of compare it with our 5-year plan? No. Yeah, so that I think may be an exercise worth doing. And saying, okay, we're doing all these things, but these we're not doing for whatever reason, doesn't matter, but at least we have identified that. Just a minute, let me make one more point. But the second thing is on the maps, the Safe Routes to School maps. The intention was us first to say, okay, use these maps as your safe routes to school. But I think it's still worth saying, okay, identify the point A to point B on those maps to see, what work may be remaining and what we need to improve. So that's another way to look at that point A to point B, is to look at each of the school maps, identify some critical route and see all those points. Are they well connected and are there gaps?
Right.
So go ahead.
I was actually going to say something along the lines that you just finished up with, which is that when you look at the safe routes to school maps, a lot of them look like spaghetti code, right? For those of you that had anything to do with high tech, meaning that there are so many streets that are identified that you have to say what's really important here. And when I think about all the speakers that we've had who were student speakers, the common theme that the students will tell you when they come before the commission is that the route that they take to school is the shortest route that they have to get there that they feel is safe, right? Not the one that's primarily recommended. And as demographics change, the most populous routes tend to potentially change as well. I don't know if they do or they don't do, but the hard thing that we've always wrestled with is there's no real data. And, if I think about where the commission can add value, one of the things that we have the ability to do, because a lot of commission members live in different parts of the city and we're connected with different communities, is work with PTAs, where staff directs us to say, this is what we'd like to consider, or where this subcommittee or working pair comes back and say, here, for example, I just thought about the comments today. If somebody said, Los Altos Avenue is a main route to Santa Rita School and to Egan and to the charter school and to Gardner Bullis or whatever, right, to high school. Is that a street that at some point we want to focus on because it's not identified short term? And so, and I'm sure, in Homestead, that came up today, that whole corridor's been up in front of us multiple times. So maybe we can, and you now have the equipment to gather data about cars, the radar devices, but how do we gather data about pedestrians and cyclists? We have to figure out a way to begin to do that. And maybe we can do that in other ways that are different than anecdotally. So it's just something to think about.
Are there any further comments or questions to Wes or Tony on this discussion item? So to summarize, right, it sounds like work's still underway. We got some feedback from commissioners and staff, which is great. We don't have any specific asks yet, but we have things that we would like to pursue and ask of the staff in the future. And then Tony and Wes, it's likely you'll provide an update at the next meeting, if that's likely on the agenda for discussion items. And then anything that you might need help with, I guess, requests to the staff, given their current priorities. I think later on in the meeting, we're getting an update from Stephen on actions and things that you're doing, so we can be more aligned with your efforts. And yeah, I guess we're making progress, which is good. And we still have a lot of things to identify and gaps and things to work on. A lot of good feedback. Moving on to the next discussion item, it's the 2025 work plan for goals and prioritizations. Looks like we have a little presentation, which is wonderful, presented by Commissioner Katz and Schneider.
You want me to start?
I will let you two proceed from here. So, Matt, you all should have a handout. Would you like one? You can have mine. I have one.
Oh, there's extra there.
Okay. There you go. Floor is yours, gentlemen.
So I'd like to first thank Tom for joining me in this effort. And the reason I created these couple of slides, and they're really just 2 slides, and it's really to kind of lay out what we're thinking about. When I accepted this working pair assignment, I actually wasn't sure what I was signing up to. And the reason I'm putting that context there was because when I first read the item, I had some thoughts, but they were cloudy thoughts. And I went back and read it a bunch of times the next day and thought, what does this really mean? And because it talks about identifying work plan items for CSC to prioritize, and I had to figure out what an item was. And I thought, is an item a project? What is an item? And so as I thought more about that, and I talked to Tom about that, I thought that, first of all, it has to be consistent with council agreed 2025 work plan goals, number one. And number two, I'm going to jump down to the 4th bullet on that first slide. We would exclude the work plan goal number 4 CIP projects, because that's really what Wes and Tony are focused on. So that takes that off the plate. And so I really thought about, we need to pick up items that as a commission, we can add value on that aren't already being prioritized by Stephen and Art necessarily as part of the infrastructure projects where you're spending the lion's share of the funding today and your own internal resources. And the other thing I thought about is we have to be able to define exactly what those are. They have to be measurable in some degree. Say we have an idea how we actually make progress against this stuff, and then we can look back on it and say, did we actually get anything done? And they have to be achievable in a reasonable time frame. And that means resources, budget, time to complete. At least have a sense of that, what it is. Are we looking at this for 2026 or 1936? What are we really talking about here? And so what I really thought is that's not a 2-man team job to really do that. It's our job to kind of lay that out. And I had a couple of ideas, and Tom did, and we talked about that. And I wanted to bring those couple of ideas forward, but I really think it's the job of the commission in total to say, let's brainstorm this. Do we want to focus on these ideas, or do we want to add 3 more ideas and then talk about what's really important? And so the ones that we thought about was, how do we support staff and the police department to identify traffic calming priorities? And that is beyond what we're doing with the street surfacing and striping projects that are on the plate today. And some of that we just talked about in terms of past data gathering studies and recommendations to look at that. And the other thing we talked about was using both the police department and staff resources to gather data to help with identification. And one of the things that I learned in meeting with Sergeant Taylor is that the city now has provided staff with data gathering radar devices that we didn't have in the past. So Stephen, congratulations on getting that stuff. And now, I guess the challenge is, how do you use that effectively? And I'm sure you guys have some great ideas about that as to where you're going to use it. But I think it's great that we now have that. And what I also learned was that Jim Wing several weeks ago stood up and said the police department have these other radar devices that we've all seen that says you're going 40 miles an hour in a 25 zone. And he said they weren't really being used. They just sit in the maintenance yard. Well, I just want to report that that is not accurate. That in the meeting with Sergeant Taylor, what he told me is that 75% of them, they actually have 5 of them, that one has obsolete software, and that the other 4 are used 75% of the time, meaning that 3 of the 4 are always in action.
as I recall, he said that the one that's obsolete, they can't update. For whatever reason, they can't update that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a budget issue or if it's
I
just
think
too.
it's, I think it's just the hardware doesn't match the software.
Yeah.
But then the other thing with that is that I asked him about collecting data with that, like Dwayne was suggesting. And he was saying that they're really only, there's no way to currently do that, but they're really there as kind of the phantom thing to scare people to, if you will, to slow down, because they put the sign up, but there's no real collecting of data and recording it as cameras.
And I think they work well doing that. They cause me to slow down. So I'm sure they cause other people to slow down.
Yeah.
And you know, the other part of that is that he told me the same thing. But now that staff has actually the smaller boxes that you guys can deploy to gather data. The other thing that he mentioned, and I think it's an opportunity, and we can talk about that later, is that I asked him how he decides where to put those. And he says they basically put them where they have a lot of noise, meaning somebody calls in and says, I'm really concerned about speeding on my street, like Tim and I can't remember Tim's wife's name, excuse me, talked about earlier tonight, you know, and if they called the police department and said, you know, we have a major problem on Los Altos Avenue or the sweet shop, they may put it there for however long they put it there for. So we have those kinds of things. So I think that we ought to take a look at potentially traffic calming priorities that go beyond infrastructure. That's one idea. A second one is now that the police department owns education programs. And what made me really think about this was two things. One is that we no longer have a consultant. And by the way, when I talked to Sergeant Taylor, he had just met with Stephen that morning. That was actually yesterday. And what he told me is that they have now resources in terms of supplies to do education on the school sites. What they don't have is manpower resources in his department right now to deliver it. But he's hoping that's going to change and that he'll have information to be able to give to our commission. And he is willing to be on the agenda. And he thought that he could do that on the July meeting because he wanted to talk to us before school season starts.
We don't
have one.
Next one is August.
Well, I guess we'll have to be August. So he's willing to come and talk to us. And if we could get him on the agenda in August, that would be great. And what I talked to him about was that as a commission, there's no reason why we can't support the police department the same way we support staff, because the goals are the same. And we just have to figure out how the best way is to do that. And the other thing I thought about was that article that Scott published in the Town Crier. And how many eyeballs we reach. It's interesting. I went to the Electric Fair maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago in downtown. There were 2 police officers there for 6 hours. I was there for 3 hours of those 6 hours. The amount of people we touched, I'd say, is maybe 30 or 40 people. And I'm being optimistic. I'm being generous, right? Scott's article touched thousands of people, the article that you wrote. And so I thought, why don't we have an article and event program? And why don't we think about 4, 5, 6 articles that we would like to see published in a Town Crier that would really help for safety in the city? And a perfect example is, I think the new striping is terrific. For those of you that drive, excuse me. For those of you that drive on El Camino Real, the striping is Technicolor, right? It's great. How many people my age and everybody's age here know the difference between green stripes, yellow stripes, and white stripes? How many people know what to do when there's horizontal striping in a bike lane approaching an intersection and you want to make a right-hand turn? Do you go into that striping or do you go around it? You know, those are two little examples. But now that we have all this new, and for me it's new, a new kind of street markings that we didn't learn when we took driver's ed. How do we behave when we see that in a very safe and effective way? So that's one example. You know, it would be great to have an article about
And
that.
also, are they even teaching all that in driver's ed now too? You know, I don't know what they're teaching in driver's ed. It might be good to have somebody explain some of that, but there's a whole bunch of different symbols on the road that are different even from city to city. You know, how you come up on like a speed hump is different from Sunnyvale to Los Altos. And I've even talked to people that don't even know what the word Shero is. And you see the bike thing, but they don't know the term or even different class names of bikes. And, you know, I didn't know any of that until I came on this committee. So it'd be good to actually have a document that shows all that, you know, like a key on a map or something like that, legend.
That's right. And, you know, Stephen, you know, a couple of months ago, I remember you saying that one of your goals was to have consistency in the signage and striping in our city. And I thought, now, if we got an article to 30,000 people in Los Altos, just in Los Altos, that talked about here's the consistent striping that we're moving towards as a city. And this is what it means when you see it, when you see something like this. We'd love it if you know, do this, do that, do the other thing. I think that would actually get traction. So that's one thing. And then an event program is, we could decide for some of the education things is how do we get that education, not just in front of the schools, but in front of the PTAs. And there were commission members here in different communities with kids in school or who know PTA people. And we could probably help do that because we know we have resource constraints across the board, police department and staff. And I thought that's a way that the commission might be able to help. And then the third thing is collaboration with other commissions within our city and with other jurisdictions where that makes sense. And the one example I thought about was downtown parking. There was an article in the Town Crier when it talked about the budget that we have now funded close to $2 million to convert 2 plazas into a park. And with the new e-bike and bicycle ordinance, I guess that was approved last night to go forward. Think about this. We want to encourage more kids to ride bikes, but do we want them actually more kids riding downtown when they can't ride on the sidewalks with diagonal parking and everything else that goes on downtown? Or how cool would it be if working with the Parks and Recreation Commission, we said, let's have inviting bike lockers, storage, cages, whatever, in the periphery of town. And then we advertise that and say, listen, when you're, you know, if you want, as you're a family, you're coming to an event, park your bikes here and walk around downtown, right? You know, it's good for us and it's safer. And we do the same thing at the high school and the junior high schools. And that way, until we figure out a safe traffic pattern around downtown that's really safe for cyclists, you know, it's not like you have to leave your bike in an unsafe area. This is a great place to leave it and just walk. So those are 3 ideas. And I'm sure there are equally valuable ideas in everybody that sits around this table. We just have to process them as a commission and say, what do we want to focus on, with a caveat that we're going to spend time over the next 4 months, right? Because we don't have a July meeting. Thank you for reminding me. So what are we going to do in August, September, October, and November to move 1, 2, or 3 of these ideas forward, because it can't be 5 of them. Won't happen. That's all.
Any
Do you wanna add
comments or
anything?
things to add to addition to that?
You mostly covered it all, and it's great. The question, one of the things I'm wondering is, you were talking about the new boxes you guys are getting, or did get for radar. Do you have any details you want to explain on that? Can you?
Yeah, basically what it is first place. There's different application for different equipment radars. What PD is doing is their radar is trying to slow down traffic. So there's no point of recording that data because that data is going to be skewed, whether people are going to be suddenly slamming on the brakes because they saw that sign, or they're going to continue on with the speed. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're actually recording those information. You really can't use it.
So they're not gonna have cameras to record it either, and then,
Well,
issue tickets?
the recorder that we have is more of a little black box that you will not be able to see that it's there unless you're actually walking next to it.
you're not referring to the license plate readers, are you?
No, I'm not talking about the flash.
Because those are.
That's a whole different story.
Yes, it is.
But the equipment that we have is a little bit different than what PD has. PD, the technology is the same, but how it's applied is applied differently. Because what PD is a dynamic speed reader. So you're basically telling the public, you're going too fast. This is the posted speed limit. Slow down. Our equipment is go whatever speed that you're going. That way, if we know what's really going on out there, whether someone's really truly speeding or someone's actually following traffic speed limit. We want the raw data. Peter wants them to slow down. So that the application is much different. That's the reason why PDs are very flashy, very big box type of things. Ours is a box about 6 inches by about 9 inches that we mount on the side of the road where nobody even sees.
We said we won't be able to get data on that, or?
The data that we collect is not ours. We own the equipment. Data is actually collected by a third party. So we never have the data physically on hand. We just have access to it.
Does that mean if we want the data, we have to pay for it?
No, we have the access to the data, but the data is not ours.
Because it'd be good to be able to, like, if we're looking at traffic calming in certain areas, it'd be good to have what the actual traffic patterns are in that, wherever those are installed.
I could tell you what the 85 percentile is. I could tell you what the 50% speed is. I
What
could
about
tell you,
historicals though, if we don't own the data?
huh?
What about historicals if we don't own the data?
We could look back on it. We have access to it, but it's not our data.
Okay,
Would
so
you
if you
refer-
put traffic calming measures in, you can then measure again and you can compare.
But you're referring to historical more years ago. Is that what you were saying?
No, I'm talking about before and afters.
I'm gonna refocus us a little bit, if you don't mind, focusing on the priorities of like the report you're giving, right? Which is great that we're like diving into other areas, but if I may, we're
Well-
given what you've shared so far, right? We're like trying to figure out what the goal prioritization is.
Well, one of the items on there is the traffic calming.
Correct. Yes.
So,
Well, is that, I mean, not that, so just stay at a high level, right, for versus like the details of like how this machine works and where the data goes, trying to figure out what we as a commission need to focus on. I'm not trying to control you, I'm just trying to figure out like where are we going? Okay, well, I'm trying to, no, in a sense, I mean, my intention for this, right, initially, or like why we brought this particular piece up was to figure out how we take action and proceed forward. And then like with your decision, right, your recommendation, like if these are the 3 items of the projects that we want to proceed, like, is this your recommendation or do we need more time to go into the details?
So I, may I answer that question?
no, go ahead, that's what I was pointing.
I don't feel comfortable without talking about this as a commission and making that recommendation. I think as a commission, the commissioners, besides Tom and I, should get to take a look at this and say, you know what, we think this is key, or we don't, or the most important, because we need to get that surface before, it's kind of like my saying, I think this is most important. All that would do is give you my personal opinion. And I think that everybody here has an opinion, but no one else has had a chance to say anything. So I'd like to hear from everybody else.
If I may suggest, if this is the route that the commissioner would like to take, can we agendize it for the future so that we can really vet this thing out? Because the whole point of this is just kind of give it a more of a report to say, this is what we want to talk about. So if the commissioners are interested in talking about that subject, if we may just agendize it, put a time limit on it so we could really hash this thing out. Because at this point in time, it's just a report.
Well, I think that's a good idea, Stephen, but since it's already on the agenda today, and, we've got 4 commissioners here right now, we could at least spend 5 or 10 minutes and see what I think.
No, I just want to clarify, maybe there's a disconnect here.
Yeah.
You are talking about getting to one of the items in the practice and going through deep into it. I agree with you there. I think what Commissioner Katz, is talking about is just talking about the high level, what's in each of the items, and say what the items are and how to prioritize them. I think, Tom, that's where there's a disconnect. I just want to clarify is, yes, let's identify the item, but let's not go deep in discussion on that particular item, because then we want to agendize it. Are we on the same page?
Yes, I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at.
I guess were you on the same page as well?
Yes.
I just want to clarify that because it's important. If we don't discuss what the items are, then I think the agenda item for us is to go through the items and prioritize them, not actually then go deep into detail. But unfortunately, to help prioritize, we have to discuss something, right? So, it's kind of a nuance, and I would appreciate the staff at some point to say, hey, we're getting too far into it, and then let's put this off and agendize it. I think, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was trying to get at is, it's very easy to get into the weeds on this subject. It's just.
So stop us when you think we're going.
That's the high level, and so it's really.
That's only fair. I just had a couple of questions, and then maybe we can get through the discussion items. So it looks like, I agree with a lot of your suggestions. I think they're fantastic. And I'm just trying to map that back onto the priority list that we have. And I think, Scott, that's what you're trying to get to see what's on that list, and let's kind of.
How do we pair this like that?
So in lieu of that, can we just go through that list and see and what at least the thought that you two have come up with? We can go through it and then go back and provide our
I think
feedback.
that's a good idea, and I think some of the things on that list touch multiple goals. On the work plan.
And then we can say, okay, these are the 3 important things. Let's just prioritize on those. Work on those 3 things. And we know that that's our priority for this year, and the next sort of goes on the back burner, right? So I just, maybe you want to sort of go through the list and see how we are.
You're saying, look at the examples that were provided by
Right, and
Tom
how that
Stephen, and then how those map.
maps onto the work plan that we have.
Right, and the only thing I would add to that.
Yeah.
Suresh, is that the reason I chose some of the ones I did is that and I'll take one that's really simple. If there was an article, an event program, we could very quickly define what that is. We can say, this is exactly what it is. The articles match these goals. If we decided we wanted 3 articles, we could either fund that, maybe, if there's money to do that, we're gonna have a professional writer write it, consulting with Stephen and with Art, or commissioners that have great writing skills. We know at least one of them. Could say, I'm already meeting with these guys and I'll write that one.
You don't think ChatGPT can?
It's exactly. Right, that's all I was gonna say.
Okay.
So based on the work that you've provided so far, I at least mapped the 3 bullets that you've called out to the project list that we have currently listed. Or, there's multiple that could thread, but as I see it, we're looking at the work plan that you have in front of us. If you were to take the 14 projects we have from top to bottom. As I've mapped them accordingly, the second one down, safe routes to school education, captures your goal of education programs. In goal 2, the second one down, review bike parking locations, reporting additional bike types. Works to the third point, collaborate with our commissioners and jurisdictions on bike parking downtown, and those efforts. And then the last one underneath goal 5, leverage traffic calming measures, AB 43 is the first one. The pieces to that, but the notes, I think, on the far right column align to like the intent of what you've ultimately called out in your examples.
I think that's accurate.
So I guess the challenge that I have is, given we all have an opinion, is there like a workshop session of like, voting for these things, or like how do we collectively give input without it just being like, I have these thoughts, I have these needs. I guess I asked the commission for ideas on how to structure this and make it effective.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
sorry. If I may, please, commissioners, let me kind of give you some of the information, some of the ideas that we brought up. Some of the stuff that's already going on behind the scene. So the whole reason why I never shared it is because we're still working through the process. I don't know if Sergeant Taylor told you that. He and I talk on a regular basis about how we are going to educate the public, how we are going to try to let the public, as well as especially the high school kids, utilize our roads safer. One of the things that we talk on a very regular basis is we're trying to come up with some of the public information, hopefully in the next month or so, a month and a half, so that we can try to work with all the schools in our city, all the schools that our kids go to share these information, and hopefully it could go out as a flyer at the very beginning to try to educate the public. One of the things that PD would like to do, and they said that they're working through the process of reaching out to Los Altos High School, is to see if there's a way that they could go out there and have like a bike rodeo, or at least have a one-on-one discussion with the kids to try to educate them on how to utilize the road. Now that we hopefully have our second reading and we can implement the e-bike policy, how that policy will impact them. So we're trying to go through that process of prepare all the educational portion of that. Kind of ironic that you mentioned the downtown bicycles, because one thing that we are doing behind the scene is we're trying to encourage people to come ride their bikes downtown, but at the same time do it safely. One of the things that we're doing right now is we have identified locations where we're going to be putting e-bike chargers, so that they could come downtown, lock up their bike, and charge their bikes. We have also identified locations where we want to put bike racks, so that they could come into town, park their bike, so that they walk through the downtown area instead of ride through the downtown area. So we have already identified some of those locations. In fact, we're even looking at where could we add additional EV chargers up there. So we're going through all that exercise already. And those are some of the features that we're actually including in our parking lot 4, 5, and 6 resurfacing. So I think we're aligned. Those are the things that we are already working on at the staff level to try to implement. And we're just not enough time to take care of every little bit.
And so I guess the question, Stephen, that I'm asking, and this is a great discussion, because the question then is, how does the commission add value to that?
Well, I think you had the hammer on the nail right, and the fact that one of the things that we lack is resource. We don't have the ability to go to each individual school and say, "Hey, we need your help trying to do this." We don't have the ability or the resource to, especially PD, don't have the resource to reach out and say, "Hey, talk to this principal. Let's see how we can set this thing up." Or for that matter, at the very beginning, here's all the information to the parents. Have them read it. And then maybe even having the PTA reinforce it by saying, "Hey, an open house, let's have a booth. Let's talk about this." Because one of the biggest problem I have and I've noticed is people complain about how it is unsafe around schools, yet 90% of the time it's the parents who's making it unsafe. Because they're all in a rush to get to school, all within a 15-minute time. So we need to start re-educating our parents, re-educating our kids that they're all on the same page so that they can navigate through our streets more efficiently and safely so that we're all on the same page, both as a driver and as a pedestrian and bicyclist.
Right. I agree, and I think we have to include some of the schools that we don't usually talk to, like the charter schools
Mhm.
where everybody's driving.
Yeah. Since I'm in an already, I kind of talked to them already. They're basically saying, we're open to talk. We're open to educating our parents and our kids. Tell us what you need from us.
Are you talking to other schools that kids from Los Gatos go to, like say Mountain View High School or Cupertino?
We have not reached out to them yet because we already have a big mountain to climb just in our jurisdiction.
But that's a potential, because there are
Yes,
kids,
yes. We have not forgotten about them.
because I think some of our safe routes to school does take that into consideration.
Correct, especially along the Homestead Route. So we have those schools have not been forgotten. We will be reaching out to them, but it's just, where do we start? I mean, given the limited resource, we got to start somewhere with the most amount of bang. And what we're hoping is if we start with Los Altos High School first, because they're kind of the biggest cause of some of our policies, maybe we could get them to settle down and then we could go ahead and do other resources.
So here's a thought as a commission, because I think that we don't want to spend all night just spinning wheels on this. Is that Tom and I are already a working pair. If you wanted us to explore one of these or two of these further and talk about them at the August meeting briefly, I'd volunteer myself. I don't want to volunteer you.
It's fine. It's all good.
I mean, just to let you know, I mean, when I have my 2x2 at for the Montclair district, I've already talked to the superintendent over there. And I've already told him that we're trying to do an educational pamphlet to send out to the school. So we're trying to figure out, okay, when is that notice going to go out so that we are ready to include our information with them. So, I mean, there's already some discussion going on behind the scene. It's just, it's in the early stage and we're still trying to refine it so that when we finally, implement it, it's well thought through and instead of just sending things out and hope that somebody reads it.
So Stephen, and let me ask you a question about one of the other goals then very quickly, since you volunteered that. Are you also talking to the people that represent the other commissions, like the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation?
We have not
Commission?
done that.
You've not done that?
We have not done that.
Because I know in the past, we have met separately with the Planning Commission. And I know that they, in fact, it just came up at the meeting last night, the council meeting, where they just changed some of the way that they're handling objective standards, where they're now having public reviews on new buildings, both commercial and private buildings. They're going back to a design review model. Whether they have a commission or not, I don't know. But I thought that was pretty interesting. And, so that's another area where we've also been in a silo as a commission and that we haven't been very active with the other commissions. And, that's also an opportunity.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I'm sharing something behind the scene right now is I want the commissioners to know that what you're asking is not something new to us. We're trying to work through the process. It's just we're trying to refine it at this point in time. How we're going to go into this, what information are we going to share, so that I don't want you guys to be in a situation where you're duplicating what we're trying to do for you guys.
Right.
So that's the reason why I'm sharing.
I just want to make a statement with respect to that. I think we need more exchange of information between the commission and the staff. I feel like this discussion shows me that we're not sharing information efficiently.
Well, the reason why I'm not sharing the information is because it's still premature.
No, yeah, but still, then we will, and if that's the case, we'll end up duplicating. I think Yeah, I understand that it's premature, but it still may be best, at least for the two team members to know what's happening behind the scenes. So there is some way of, otherwise we're gonna be sitting here talking about it and maybe discussing things that's totally irrelevant, right? We may be able to make progress on other things. So I think we should try to improve that.
No, that's fine.
um,
Yeah, I didn't realize this is the direction that the commissioner was going with that 2x2.
Yeah.
It's just, we have already started the process and we're trying to refine, we're trying to implement, figure out how we're gonna implement it, so.
Yeah, but the point I was gonna make is that's a portion of what I think is what we are talking about as the work plan for the commission.
Mhm.
Now, safe routes to school is communicating to school and the parents is one thing, right? But then the question of what is a SHARA? You know, we had a member from last time who came and made a comment on the Complete Streets Commission about a plan. They had no idea what a SHARA was. It was pretty obvious, right? So that kind of education is beyond going to a school and saying what a SHARA is. It's an article. It's something that's persistent in the community to say what these are, like the striped green lines. I think we need to make progress on that education as well. I think that's part of this thing, right?
But that's what we just said too.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, but it'll be good to have an exchange of information saying, okay, if you can report on some of these things, then we can take into account as we make the, prioritization of the plan. Maybe then we can say, okay, hey, there's great work going on. Let's pull back on this a little bit. Let's see how that work helps what we're doing, because if that much progress is being made, that's great, right? I mean, that's fantastic. And that says, okay, we're making progress on our plan, and maybe the commissioners then focus on something else.
Right.
And move on. I think that's helpful too. So that's one point I was gonna make.
Yeah, no, I have no problem with that.
Yeah,
It's just, like I said, I didn't realize this is where the commissioner was going.
Yeah.
This is the first time I heard of it, so it's like, okay, so then just to let you know, this is what staff level.
but,
this is where we can
yeah,
go.
but the point also I want to make is we have a work plan, and that's a joint shared work plan.
Yeah.
So it'll be good for the staff to report on anything that's affecting the work plan during our work plan discussions too.
No
So
problem.
let's do this every month. I think this is great because now we know, and then, we can ask the right questions to them going forward.
Yeah, I'm with that.
And the second point I was gonna make was, I think we're at a point that says there's enough comments from Commissioner Katz and Schneider. And I think there's enough thought for us to go through this and say, you know what, we're gonna focus on these are going to deprioritize, and we can do that today. I think we have enough information to say, because it looks like you've taken a look at it, you're making some recommendations here, and you're looking for feedback because you want to make progress on where to go from here, and I think we should do that. And we should go around the table, and that's what I was saying, let's just go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and say, work is being done here, there's nothing that the commission can do at this time. This is great because this fits with this, and let's focus on that. Let's go through all of this real quick. And I think we can, that way we can sort of, cross off a few things and make progress in some other things. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that's clear. Any objections to structure proposal?
No.
Then proceed forward, I guess, with item number 2 and prioritizing. I'll run through these. I'm gonna try and do them effectively and quickly. So given we do have 14 items on here, so let's be at least judicious with our comments and our itemization if we can. So for the first,
Scott,
yeah.
just real quick, who's gonna update this document? Who's in charge of this document?
I guess it was called to the working
before
pair.
that.
I can take notes, but it's.
Well, no, I'm just saying, because it was developed by a previous working pair of the subcommittee.
No,
Well,
no, that's what this was our, that's the
I
work.
know it's
that was
approved,
adopted by-
right, it's approved one, but I'm saying, is it Art, are you documenting, making changes to this officially?
I would say this falls to
I
us.
just.
We're not making any changes. This is.
Yeah.
We're not
this is the
making,
work-
I think, let me make it clear. I think what I'm saying is let's not make changes to the plan.
Correct.
But let's make notes to the plan
Right.
saying, because we have to report at the end of the year as a staff and as commission, what progress we made on this work plan, right?
Okay,
So the
so
question is,
my,
yeah.
I guess where I was going with that was, some of these like will be completed, so who's documented that they will be completed? Like for an example, e-bike ordinance may be completed depending on what you guys is reporting.
Yeah.
So do we check mark it and then,
Yeah.
and then just take it off, or?
I would not take it off.
Take it
So we
off.
have a status column, and that
Okay.
status column we don't have the subsequent statuses that are listed there, but ultimately just update these appropriately and then prioritize as our focus.
My
So
proposal,
some master document somewhere that
I think many commissioners have it, or links to it, the city staff has links to it, and
Sure,
then,
absolutely.
yeah,
Okay,
we would just update a version to it and proceed forward.
all right.
My suggestion is that you create a copy of the spreadsheet, right? And then just do the status update, share it with staff before we come to this meeting. Then you can provide your input, so we have a common place to keep the status update. Does that make sense?
It's also a great idea in the fact that when you give your annual report to city council, you can say, here was our
Yeah,
plan.
here's a
Right.
very-
Here's all the stuff we have completed.
Yeah, it's the beginning and end, right? And it's a working document.
And then that way you can also, if you say there's an update, say we are working on these things, you can just write it in the document and they have access to it. It's just to make sure that the only people who have access to it are you two and the staff, and you don't share it with the rest.
Yeah.
Without proper
You mean editing, sure.
editing check, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want
Okay.
to, you just tell them, yeah.
Yeah.
you just-
Okay.
So to go through the first one, project one, updating safe routes to school infrastructure, implement where applicable in 2025 CIP project list. This was planned. Where are we,
I can do a status update on that, I think.
please?
I think we're done with this because our plan for 2025 is done. Maybe you want to do an update at the end of it, a staff report saying where we are, Stephen.
Well, I can tell you where we are, but I'll just
Yeah.
wait to, when I give status of all our projects.
Is that true that we're done with that for this year?
So update this.
I agree.
You did. Moving on to 1.2, safe routes to school education.
That's what we identify as one of the primary priority items.
I think that's scheduled for now for August 30th, right? We're gonna get a presentation from the police department. Because that was the goal, was to agendize the police department's presentation.
And I think maybe all that stuff that we discussed at the same time, the PD will know.
Yeah.
how this-
So that should be in progress. And I think that we've got a date for the August meeting.
And can I make a suggestion with that? I think there are some ideas that that are brought up, like Scott's article.
Yeah.
And maybe identify one or two additional articles.
Yeah.
That might help, in addition to what you're working on to provide as a packet for the school. There's things about the shower. Maybe it's just starting, what is a shower?
Well, I could.
That itself is a-
Record, it was in the last
fantastic
article, and
article.
the image of it was in the last
Right.
article in the draft, and the Tom Crider removed it, so it had 4 images showing exactly my 4 points.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
And it was removed, so even though I called it out for the 4th thing, it was struck, so for the record.
My suggestion there was, you can add some of that stuff like that article to the website, our website, so the crier can't do anything to it.
Yeah, we can
edit,
take action.
And then we can put a link to that where,
What is the city, what is the city's process for improving such a document, or can we do that, make that happen?
What do you mean?
well, who's in charge of the complete, updating the Complete Streets website? I was thinking it was art, so.
Yes, I could go in there and do edits, but I gotta get permission to put stuff in there, so. Which is Stephen.
Well, the other thing is, many of you have a connection with Bruce Barton, who is the staff writer for the crier.
I mean, he's the one I submitted my article to.
Right. And because I know somebody who knows him pretty well. And if we wanted to get another article in there, we could do a little lobbying.
I think maybe good for you to recommend maybe one or two articles that fits with
Yeah.
everything that we could do with. So we have, let's say we have July, August, September, October, maybe
Yeah.
3 articles between now and the end of the year that might help.
Maybe there's a forthcoming month there was bike month last month, maybe there's a coming month and then through summertime or something else that would align to a goal that we want to achieve, so we can call out that particular month. If it's pedestrian safety
Yeah.
or
Well, I think
or
we
Vision
can-
0 or something else, right?
Right.
Or when school
Without-
begins or something,
Yeah.
school starts.
Without going into the weeds, I think there could be aligning with back to school.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly, yeah. That covers number 2. Any other comments on that before we move forward? Wes, if you need something, please raise your hand and we'll make sure to call on you. Project 3, Wayfinder map and signage for safe routes to school. I think this was an idea initially we had to improve the website and also improve the road markings for our safe routes to school, but I think maybe this is I don't know if we jumped the gun on it. I'm maybe looking for like our map updates, things we've been
I
discussing.
think we discussed this briefly last time and we agreed that this is something that gets subsumed into, I think, what, we're doing as part of each of the project.
You would say ongoing, basically,
Yeah,
as it
but I
resolves.
think we should make our safe routes to school maps more public, because a lot of the other communities, other cities do make the maps more easily accessible.
On their website.
Yeah, but I think you saw an email from Margie from Greentown about,
Yeah, it was from the, I think, it was just, because we have a new webpage, we have a new
I
website.
see,
I think
okay.
the links got broken up, but it's.
because the county of Santa Clara has a safe routes to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just have a new
webpage.
website because
Yeah,
the
where they
link
have
got,
links from each of the
the link
cities.
got broken.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
the only
all right.
thing. But it is, the list is there.
We have a
Our
lot of
list
stuff
office is
got
there,
broken.
but the link got broken because of.
A lot of stuff broken.
But we-
Yeah.
we need to.
So maybe that's another part of that project is to make sure that those maps are prominent, easily accessible. Maybe we want to provide QR codes of some sort to be able to get to those maps, right?
Art, if you need help with that, happy to give you feedback, and work with you as a user of the website regularly and going through things, or if,
Well, I'm still learning the new website, so.
yeah,
So.
or
we're still
places
learning.
that, locations to place the information within complete streets or other things.
Right. Well, you guys can look at the website and give,
Give you feedback.
get feedback,
Okay.
that's,
Is that
And
we
I-
send it to you or the?
Yeah, you can send it to me, what you think it's, you would want to see, and I would go back to somebody else, and they would,
Go back to
Review
the-
process.
exactly, it's a process.
Wes?
I just want to add something in here, and I'm trying to tie this into the prioritization, like larger point, but maybe it's worth just stating anyway. In looking at Complete Streets Master Plan, maybe already everyone knows this, but it did confirm for me that bike routes, specifically like signed routes through neighborhood residential streets where bikes and cars can just share the road completely, is sort of an intended element of the Complete Streets Master Plan. And in fact, there are specific maps showing where a comprehensive across Los Altos plan was for all of the elements, but bike routes specifically. And obviously we know that some of those exist today, but that's part of the plan. So if there's a way to, I guess maybe one point to make is that looking into that a little bit more, seeing what the master plan had in mind could be part of the work that I'm doing with Tony, that we could imagine sort of advancing through the end of this year and into next year if we see that there's work that could be done as far as adding more signing or things like that. So I think maybe complementary or in addition to what Suresh you were saying, but just wanted to point that out as well.
Any other comments on project 3? Moving on to 4, downtown safety improvements, review traffic calming measures and speed limit mechanisms. The note was to evaluate opportunities to reduce speed in downtown Los Altos. I don't know where this falls because there's obviously radar, wide surveys that we're working on. There's a lot of requests from the city at large, I guess, to have a one-way path evaluated over time, given that it's a historical item. I don't know where this falls into the work that we're doing. Anything on your
That would have to be as part of the city's general plan.
city general plan?
Yeah, which.
Yeah, we had this discussion last time.
Yeah.
And I think this is sort of, has to, it was pretty clear from the discussion last time that, yes, we want to keep this in our plans, but this is something that's larger at this point. And has to be part of the general plan. So I think that's our comment probably back to the city council at the end of the year. But highlighted very carefully that that's what it is. But the second aspect of that was, there was supposed to be some striping. We have not seen the final, maybe we'll do an update today. The final 90% plus plans on any striping improvements in downtown.
Okay.
So maybe there are some elements that are tied to this, so maybe those are the two things that we're working on this year. Is whatever striping improvements we're going to do this year as part of the 2025, but the projects that you're sanctioning now. But then any future discussion about one way and other traffic calming measures, I think goes into the general plan. I think that's what I recall from last meeting.
Yeah, we also mentioned that when the city does start doing the general plan revision.
Yeah.
Then the plan department is gonna come and present to us what the general plan has to say, the traffic element.
And you did mention that there was some work started on towards that direction.
Yeah, we just got the budget approved, so they're waiting for the budget to be implemented for us.
So maybe Steve or Tom, you can note that as part of that work item, that's what our intention is. So the commission is gonna wait until we hear back on that.
Right.
So this remains in plan, but I don't know if it's necessarily planned as in like on hold. I feel like the status of this just is like until we get update from the general plan revision, we don't have any actions to take.
I agree.
An action
Beyond
statement.
whatever striping improvements we're gonna do this time.
Yeah, but I don't think the striping improvements will help with calming measures or speeding limit mechanisms. Is that an accurate
Well,
statement? Or
Yeah, it's calming measures probably, because one of the things that Jim Wayne talked about today, the straight in Main.
yeah,
I'm assuming there have been some striping improvements, Stephen, right? That should help, right?
Yes.
At least from pedestrian safety perspective, right? Yeah, so there's some elements, I guess, but
Not like-
more work to be done. Yeah.
loosely
I
correlated.
agree.
I'm gonna, if there's no objection, I'm gonna mark this one from a status from plan to on hold. And then we can make an updated note to the general plan
I
revision.
agree.
No objections?
Nope.
Moving on to the fifth one, we've talked about this already, review bike parking locations and supporting additional bike types. Currently, it's in progress. It sounds like you've report.
Looks like a lot of progress being made by staff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any additional color to that, or do we just, as a commission, we just wait until, are you gonna bring anything to the commission or just implement?
Which one?
That bike parking locations in downtown and the bike on the
I
plan.
share with the commission as a staff report. So, I mean, right now we're looking at is putting a bike rack in front of Redberry. I'm looking for another location on First Street, so we capture the biking train to downtown corridor. We're also looking at, well, like I said, the e-bike locker is gonna be part of the 4, 5, and 6 parking lot resurfacing. So that's gonna take a little bit longer, but the bike lots, the bike racks will be going in as part of our end streets probably in about a month.
Do we, I can maybe make a suggestion that we make a map of downtown
Spots.
with all the spots where bike parking is available.
I think that was gonna be part of it. Anyway.
We discussed it. I don't know how much action we took on it besides.
Well, we have
Discussing
to,
the
have to
topic.
know where they are.
Yeah.
Is that possible, Stephen?
Um,
You're gonna create the plans anyways, right?
well, the plans that we have is deals with 4, 5, and 6. We would have to actually go out to the field and locate all the bike racks, so that would take us a little bit of time.
A link to those would be good for festivals and the farmers market.
Yeah.
And the First Fridays.
Yeah, so like I said,
And,
it'll just take us a little
hard
bit of time to get.
Yeah,
get
there's
to
three
that.
of those. Right.
That's would it be possible, if staff needs help on that, I think reach out to Greentown. If you need help on just that specific creating a map.
A map of all the bike racks out there, because there's different kinds, there's the decorated ones.
Yes, that's right. So I'm
There is,
hoping-
there is an existing one, but it's not up to date, so some of them might have been removed or. So I could send that bike map, bike rack map to you guys,
Okay.
and then you guys maybe help out and maybe get it updated or something.
Is there a standard, like, where you guys would put those? Cause right now there's
They're all-
those
yeah.
shaped things.
That's what I mean, there's
On the
like
side?
decorated ones, there's, there's
Well,
different
then-
kinds.
well, I'm saying it's where,
There's
I'm saying it's on the sidewalk, and I didn't know if. it
Yeah, I
should
don't,
be
I
on the
don't I don't
sidewalk.
know the history of most of
Right,
those.
but I
so-
know, I'm saying, is there a guideline or plan that we put those on the sidewalks, they have to be in the street, because.
So
there's currently one on
when there's new, like,
the
new development, they do put, where they're planning to put bike racks and stuff like that, and we do give them recommendations of where they should put them, but all the other existing ones, I don't know what, I don't know the history of those, so.
I recall from a conversation a long time ago that we're going to remove those and just unify them all to new kind of rack. Is that still the plan?
Yes,
That's the plan. So the
ultimately.
ones that are artistic will be removed, is that right?
Yeah, because those are not readily used in the public.
People don't know it's a bike.
But I will give you there is a map, So I'll find the map, because we use it for bike month.
Label it. Put a big label.
I'm leaving that in progress for the status, and we'll get a bike rack map from Art, thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to goal 3, multimodal transportation safety, complete e-bike ordinance. This is in the city's hands, where
There's a lot at this.
It's been approved,
Yeah.
approved yesterday. And
Steve,
by the way,
Steve, we're
there was a
talking,
great
we're talking
article.
about this.
I don't, I think great is not the right word. There was a comprehensive article in the Town Crier today. I don't know if everybody read that,
last week's.
this week's.
Yeah, we went to this, it just prior today. I think.
The one that we got today.
The one we got in the mail today.
Yeah, that talked about the ordinance and how that compares to the state ordinance and what the objectives were. And I thought it was in general, it was well done and comprehensive.
Is a staff reporter.
I'm sorry.
Who wrote it? Who
Well, no,
wrote
it was written by somebody, a woman, I think it was Ann Paulson, if I remember
Oh, yeah.
correctly. You know who she is?
Yeah.
This is Greentown.
Are we talking about the new El Camino Real one? That is an article by Bruce Barton that talks
No.
about the bollards and
No,
The-
this is one
the
about,
feedback.
about the e-bike ordinance. It's about half, it's in the middle of the paper. somewhere.
Okay.
Section
it?
one.
Today.
Yeah, this was today's paper.
Oh,
So for this particular one, it sounds like it's completed as a status.
yeah.
I was gonna have Art and you didn't talk about that.
They will in their staff, city
Right.
staff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we get to that part for them, I think, but you're right on track. Well, we didn't do much work on that, but we did complete it, so great job, commission.
You guys did a great job on it.
Sorry.
You guys did a great job on it.
We needed to go on.
Can I have, just a request for staff? Is it was approved, is the final document ready to be published?
No, it was the first reading, so there's still a little modification.
So it is the first read.
It was the first reading, so
Okay.
it'll be the second reading on the 8th, and then 30 days after that, you'll be going to ordinance.
Okay, right. And then the changes that were proposed, anything that the commission should discuss, should know about?
Well,
Is it
I'll
a-
discuss that when I do my stuff.
City,
Okay.
Actually, sorry, I strike my status update, it's still a work in progress. Not done yet.
The reason why I'm asking is that if, once a document is published, it may be good to create a highlight, like a one slide. And put it on the Complete Streets Commission's website to, for people to know what are the highlights of that ordinance.
Moving on, San Antonio road improvements. This thing sounds like it's on hold, given where we are. Is-
No, it's still in progress. I have already submitted the RFA, but received comments back from Caltrans yesterday, so I gotta resubmit it.
So just so you know, everybody knows, so there's some major excavation work going on in San Antonio right now in the southbound lanes, like between Alma and Sylvian or so. I don't know whether they're doing water pipes or whatever they're doing, but it's gonna create, I think, a need for some resurfacing at some point, because the road is not as smooth as it used to be, and it will be worse when they're done.
A lot of the utilities are trying to get in and get out before we start our project, so they're starting to put some traction into upgrading their infrastructures.
It's good they're doing it before, not after. First can't happen before. So this remains in progress. You have an update for us and your shortly, great. So create partnerships with neighboring agencies. The ultimate gas foster communications with neighbors like Palo Alto, Mountain View, Sunnyvale, etc. I don't know where we are on this.
I don't think we're anywhere.
Yeah.
Art, you wanna share yours?
Yeah, which one?
Create partnerships with neighboring agencies.
City of Mountain View.
Oh, City Mountain View, actually, they're meeting tonight at 6, well, they're probably done, but 6:30, BPAC, the Mountain View BPAC. We're talking about the El Monte project from J Street to El Camino. So if you have a chance, go to their website, BPAC, the Mountain View, and I'm assuming they have, I think, preliminary plans. I think, I'm not too sure, but they were gonna discuss it tonight about that project.
Well, thank
So-
God I stand corrected, because there was also the El Camino project. So there actually was progress made there. El Camino right now, El Monte,
So this is a new project
right?
for Mountain View where it's from J Street, because that's their jurisdiction. El Monte's from J Street to El Camino. That section of El Monte is
Right.
Mountain View, so.
The other part
This is a
that,
joint commission meeting we had 3 years ago
All right,
with Mountain View,
Okay.
before they started on the project.
sure.
We gave extensive input. into
Okay.
the Commission, yeah, it's very, very productive.
the
So
other,
now they're getting close to getting their final design on it, so.
the other part that I was going to add is the fact that, the city of Mountain View did reach out to us. They do want to have a discussion with us about trying to, coordinate our safe route to school. So we are taking the lead and he's setting up a meeting so that we try to coordinate between their safe route to school coordinator and us and try to get this worked out.
Because
So we
That's
have-
exactly- That's exactly what we wanted on this item. Yeah.
Just got this email this to coordinate with them, so
Oh, great.
we're gonna update you guys on that. certain projects.
But there's, I mean, this is mainly, it sounds like staff input in the community, but we as the commission aren't doing anything actively on this particular item. Do we have interest or desire to like reach out as well and have joint commission meetings or efforts?
Well, it sounds like we will be.
It sounds to me like staff is really driving this.
Yes.
And I think it's been effective because, we've had the county present to us the work on Foothill Expressway. They seem to listen to what we had to say and they came and talked to us. So there's been both at the county level and El Camino, I thought there wasn't anything done on El Camino that I don't think we were unhappy about. So it seems to be working.
I'm not saying it's not working. I'm in favor of it. I was saying, we as commissioners are not taking any proactive steps and we are enlisted as stakeholders in this particular priority. So that's why I'm asking. If we need to or want to take other steps or actions.
Well,
Are we okay
it
with
sounds
that?
like we will be when Bert gets. We're basically.
Yeah, we're passively involved. We're not like going out there and talking to other commissions from other cities.
And I can give updates, with the-
That's okay, then we're okay with that. I just want.
No, I think that's actually a very good question is, sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, it's Christopher. Okay, I was just gonna say, like, I'm curious. Question for Art: like, are the people that you're coordinating with, are they like city, engineers? Are they your counterpart, like in Mountain View?
A city planner reached out to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So, one of the city planners in Mountain View reached out saying about, collaborating regarding safe routes to school and all that stuff. So, I haven't met with her yet, but we're trying to set up a meeting, so, I didn't
Awesome.
respond to her, she didn't respond back, so I'm trying to set up a meeting with her.
I
And see
mean,
what, and then I'll give you guys updates of what's going on.
yeah. I mean, I'm personally just like, yeah, obviously happy to, let you guys drive it, but also happy to support and help in any way we can. And if it becomes a larger conversation or collaboration, like happy to be involved, whether it's, like we said, folks come into each other's meetings, or even just like, I'm happy to, get a cup of coffee or join a meeting individually.
This is an initial meeting, so I don't even know this person, so.
Sounds good. And sorry, I know especially we're talking to. Thanks, Art.
I just want to reiterate, it's great that they have reached out.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good start because we have a lot of, cross traffic. And if it makes sense, it may be a good idea to have a joint meeting between our commission and the Mountain View back.
Right.
And the thing could be something that we could agendize is to discuss a few items that we could all work together on. That is, we can prioritize work together on. But I think that should probably be driven by anything that the city staff comes up in terms of, when you have a meeting with their Safe Routes to School coordinator.
No, it's her title is planner. So
Planner, okay.
I don't know if she's the coordinator or she's the,
Okay.
I just got the email from.
So if
her.
there are some things that comes up and that, could be,
Sure.
worthwhile grounds for having that joint
Right.
meeting and discussion.
Yeah.
So this one's just work in process. Moving on to update, conduct citywide radar survey. Is there an update you'll provide in your staff report, Stephen, on this, or?
We haven't done anything because we have just chance.
So this
think
was
this one's on
listed to be
hold.
anticipated completed in Q1, where in Q2 going to Q3 soon, in June. Do you have in your current plan, do you have plans for this to be completed by end of year, or is this not prioritized currently?
By the end of the year.
Okay,
So I would change that Q1 to
Q4, okay.
Yeah, change it to Q4.
Gotcha. Any other comments or
We can put notes on it.
feedback on that one? I'll say I'll leave it as planned.
Yeah.
Moving on to goal 4, the item of implement 2025 project list.
There was a special meeting on May 14th that covered that, right?
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think it sounds
It's point, just staff report on progress.
efforts. So I will mark this one as updated as completed.
Well, it's not complete until actually the projects are complete, right, Stephen?
Well, this is a project list.
Oh, it's a project list, okay.
This project list.
We will never be there. It's
Yeah,
on
the list we
The
have,
list is complete.
we reviewed it, we've done it, and now the work is
List
done.
too. See, the list is never done either.
For this year, the 2025 project list.
We're done for now, but you will be, it's a living, breathing document.
Next one, review and update long-term capital improvement project list.
I think that's in progress. That's what the other working pair.
Are working on.
Yeah, their inputs into the long-term 5 years, and then we identify that.
So work in progress.
That would be in August, you said, Stephen, last time that you're ready to start reviewing that in August,
Doing what?
the next year's plan.
Actually, as soon as we open bids on July 2nd, we will be getting right on it.
Right, but discussion.
Do you want to change the due date on that for the anticipated completion dates? Give Q2 and 3.
So you plan to have this review and updated list by the first week of July? Is that an accurate statement?
No, we will start the process.
It says that they're working until the bid goes out for the current year's project.
Gotcha, so we'll just leave this, I'll strike Q2 and then just leave it as Q3. Yeah, okay, thank you, appreciate it. Moving on to goal number 5, so identify gaps and priorities with respect to safe routes to school and complete street master plan items and past budgets.
That's me and Tony.
So that was Q1 listed, we're gonna move this to Q2 instead of Q1. And that's work in process versus planned.
Yeah.
Moving on to leverage traffic calming measures, AB 43. It says to be determined by end of year to be completed. I know we have a lot of thoughts on how to leverage or what we want to see in the city and a lot of feedback from citizens, but I don't think we have any work that's occurring to actually leverage the AB. Am I wrong on this or am I?
But I think one of the recommendations from you two is to look into it, and I.
Well, yeah, my recommend, so when I thought about that, I don't see AB 43 as a goal in itself. I think it's a tool, just like any other tool for traffic calming, whether it's a speed table or AB 43 or some other methodology. And what seems to be missing to me is the prioritization of exactly where we need to apply that. You know, we heard a couple of people speak today about Los Altos Avenue. People have spoken in the past about the frontage road or the area near Homestead and Grant, Grant Road. So I think we have to figure out where we need to do significant traffic calming. That's not already in process for the infrastructure CIP project list that we're already doing. And right now, the good news is that staff has some of the tools to do that, like these little radar boxes, right? And I think it's a question of identification. and to do that and what bothers me is the only way we tend to do that is squeaky wheel kind of identification. You know? And maybe that's just how it is.
I'm gonna challenge us on this particular item, having just looked at, read an article that San Francisco closed their community feedback mechanism tool. Because their backlog was too large. And and during COVID, they removed the requirement that if someone wanted to make a suggestion for traffic calming measures in their neighborhood, it was up to 75 signatures of the local individuals to actually put it in front of the city. There's such a backlog and a budget deficit that like we need to actually start over because this isn't working for us. If we're going to leverage traffic calming measure plan, right, or propose something, I think once we get through this working pair and figure out our prioritization with a little bit of effort in analyzing this bill and coming up with like what we've learned over the last 6 months, I think we could draft a recommendation from the commission and say like, here's what we think is an appropriate step. Work with city staff to say how they proceed forward, right, and like leave it there versus just debating it.
Are you suggesting that we should have something like that where they need to have 75 signatures?
Whatever we want, right? I mean, because we could talk about how do we think about traffic calming measures? Is it roundabouts? Is it speed bumps? Is it not these things? What does it mean for us as Los Altans with community input to say like, how do we want to slow traffic within the law, within our tools? And how do we make a recommendation? Because right now we just talk about it a lot, which is good, but I'm not hearing yet from the commission, like, here's what we think is a followable way to proceed forward holistically.
And I think we need guidance from staff and the police department on
Yeah.
that.
I
You know,
agree.
for us to come up with that as a commission with that, and I think that's why I think it would be great. Maybe to have that as a discussion item when Sergeant Taylor is here as well, along with Stephen, and talk about, is that something that both staff and the police department view as something that they're focused on? And Stephen, does that resonate with you?
What was that again?
So what Scott was just talking about
Yeah.
was that having some kind of commission discussion of traffic calming direction
Mhm.
that we're gonna take as a commission
Mhm.
in terms of, here's what we're looking at to determine how we're gonna move forward with using the tools that are at our disposal to calm traffic under what criteria.
If I may, could we have this discussion by November of this year? The reason why is because whatever we come up with, the police has to be at the table and having the discussion and buy off of what we're requesting. And based on what I do know, they're light at the end of the tunnel right now for the police department. They might be able to get additional resource by then. That way they can come to the table with us and say, this is what we could do and help this communication progress.
I'm not against your thing. I'm saying we should be more proactive at this point and propose something. And then they can react to our proposal.
And
That's
I
my
think
suggestion.
we always don't have to rely on the police, but I think we have our own resources too. And then it also depends on the budget for different things, but
Well, the reason why I'm asking the November one is because the commission may come up with an idea that may, how do I say it? Engineering is only one leg of this three-legged stool.
Yes.
And without having the other leg in this conversation, we may be reinventing the wheel after the fact. Instead of having, when we could have that open discussion with the police department and say, hey, this is what engineer could do. This is what police, you guys could do. How do we bring the commissioner, police, and engineering all together and say, okay, given what our capacity is, given our capability, let's come up with this discussion. How do we build this roadmap, basically?
you're not saying that we stop work on it.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay.
But I'm just basically saying it's it may be more advantageous if we have police here and present. Once they know when that resource will be available, to basically say, yes, we could do this, or we cannot, or we, they're involved in this discussion. I just don't want to
We
tell
them
them.
involved too.
Yeah.
We do want them involved.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, let's have them on the table at the same time.
Can I clarify? I'm not sure I fully understand the discussion. I think the proposal again here is to explore and use AB 43 where appropriate, right?
Mhm.
Is what you're saying.
Mhm.
I think, but you are talking about something very specific measures.
Well, the whole thing is, I know for a fact that we're probably end up going down to the weeds and really wanting to talk about the details.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I'm sure that the outcome is we want to have some sort of a general idea of what direction we want to go,
What, in terms of what? In terms of,
how we want to slow down traffic.
okay, all right, so that's the bigger question. I think in leading up to this, I think one thing we discussed last time is maybe more education to the commission and the community about what AB 43 is,
Hmm.
right? So we maybe talked about having someone come and talk to us about what that AB 43 maybe. I think you said that there may be a presentation, you were gonna talk to the legal team about,
Yeah, there was a presentation that was made to city council a little while ago.
yeah.
So let me talk to our legal and see what we can do.
Yeah, to the commission, I think that would be a great first start, because I think part of this is Cupertino did this, like they picked 3 streets in Cupertino and they applied AB 43 to come up with measured calm traffic on those 3 streets. Maybe rather than trying to discuss about what that mechanism is there, we need the PD. The discussion also needs to happen as to, are there any 1 or 2 pilot projects that the community can benefit from applying AB 43? And so, rather than, Menlo Park did some things, right? They went quite far saying all our streets are gonna be, they did a different way of using AB 43. Cupertino picked 3 projects. I think it's on their website, as 2 or 3 projects. I think this with Williams. No, I think there were 2 or 3 projects, streets that they picked, and they applied AB 43 and came up with a design for that. So we're not sure even how and where to mesh this. I think we may need some education first, and I think the community knowing about it also would be great.
I also think it's consistent with some things that Zettles has already done. If you think about it, we have gone way beyond state law with the 15-mile-an-hour speed limit by our public schools. And now there's a whole bill in front of the assembly to take the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit from schools down to 20, right? Mark Berman introduced that bill to pass the assembly, it's on to the Senate.
Yeah.
But we're ahead of them because we already have 15 miles an hour. So we know that our city is willing to implement lower speed limits than state law. AB 43 is simply another tool that allows us to apply that beyond just within a certain distance from a school. So when you talk about the council's direction for continuity, from one area of the town to another area on certain roads, maybe some of those roads, the current posted speed limit is too high. But somehow we have to identify that, right? To say, and I like Suresh's idea that says you pick a pilot program to say, here's an area that we know is problematic. We're going to start with this one and see what happens. It's a thought. And there might be receptivity to it. I'm
Given
just
the,
throwing out there for.
given the good ideas, I think on this, once we prioritize this, if this is our top 3, which is what I think is already on our list.
Yeah.
We can come up with a recommendation and a request and then kind of go through.
Well, I think before we do that, I wanted to make sure that, that the commission is asking something that is reasonable, that is. What's the right word? Is the right direction.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And I think this is where we, like to get the city staff and any adjacent teams to provide some feedback before
Okay.
we make a recommendation that's
Yeah.
like, what?
I'm on board with this. I just want to make sure that this is, I mean, this discussion item is to prioritize our goals, right? And if we would like to have this be a discussion item for our August meeting, when the police officer is here, surgeon, and we can actually, get, here's our 3 things we would like to hear from you. This could be one of those things, and we can gather more input, and then ultimately, move forward with our path, right? I like where we're going with this, and it sounds like it's important to us, so it's on the right list.
Yeah, and if it's not in the PD, if the staff wants to assemble, that presentation, the city council plus PD, everything, we could dedicate it something in Q4, a meeting to just put AB 43 on the table and see, provide some guidance back to the commission as to how we should think about going forward with this.
Any final thoughts?
Not at this time.
Okay, yeah.
The reason why is because there's, I gotta figure out the bigger picture, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I-
no, no,
and exactly why I don't
You've
think
heard
it
us,
makes,
and we appreciate that.
Yeah, no,
yeah, and I think it's exactly why it doesn't make sense for the commission to say, okay, well, let's pick the street, we make a recommendation, we want AB 43 on the street. I don't think that makes a lot of sense.
Right.
I think the staff, Stephen, I think you understand.
And then I'm gonna move us forward onto the last item. So long-term and 2026 Fleet Streets work plan. This happens at the end of the year. Actually, I don't have a date, or we don't have a date set for this. It's in the quarter. Is there a specific time frame when we would start this?
I think September, I think, right, we start.
It says,
I think September usually we start
okay,
thinking about it and then having,
Which one, the long-term plan?
the long-term in 2026.
work plan for next year's work plan. We usually start September.
Looks like the staff, Stephen made a comment that as soon as the bid goes out, you're gonna start working on it. As soon as the bid goes, so you will we'll merge with whatever we make progress on in terms of the gaps, right? And provide that input into the plan that the city staff is gonna work on for 2026. That's my understanding. Is that right?
So I'll update this from Q4 to at least September, and then we'll have a firm date for action, and then whether we create an ad hoc subcommittee or like we did last time, or working pairs to create something for us to start us forward, we can make that decision. So to, I guess, get us to a finalization of item 2, we discussed these, we've updated them, which is good, but we haven't actually decided our 3 priorities that we want to focus on. The recommendation is as such, right, is the safe routes to school, bike parking and supporting additional types, and leveraging traffic calming measures AB in addition to work that's already ongoing. Is that the right path, or do you need another month, come back in August?
I think that's right. I think that what Tom and I didn't know going into this, nor did the commission, was all the work that staff has already done on some of these. And so that was news tonight. And as a result of that, that actually helps narrow down what we want to focus on, where we can be complementary to what staff is doing. And that's why I think what would be great at the next meeting that we have would be to have a presentation, if we could, about where staff is against some of these items, and then where, as commissioners, we can then complement that to either fill in gaps or assist.
I concur. And then for some insight in the agenda planning that Wes, myself, and Art did, what the request was for the city staff to provide update on detailed actions that they're taking. Because in our questions, we learned like, oh, this is happening. Here's our timeline. So, the request has been clear from the commissioners, and then I think the city staff is hearing that the more we know, the better we can not duplicate efforts and proceed forward. So that was asked before this meeting occurred, and I think they prepared for that to an extent. And we're getting better at it.
And then the one ask that I heard come out of our discussion was to get, I would say, an article written prior to the start of school that talks about some of the safety features that we want to highlight. Maybe that has to do with some of the consistent signage and striping, I don't know. But I think in order to do that, it would take a meeting with Art and Stephen, because we need subject matter experts on this, and it's not, and nobody on this commission is a subject matter
And PD,
expert.
and PD as well.
And the police department, yes, I agree. To actually then figure out who's gonna actually write that article, you know, with that subject matter expert and get it published. Does that make sense?
Very clear. Yeah, it's part of the Safe Routes to
And
School
I don't know if
education
Stephen
plan.
and Art, whether that fits your priorities over the next 60 days. Or actually 45.
When the school be, you need to have it ready by
The second week of August, is where school starts.
second week of August,
I mean,
in
within
8 weeks.
So I'll say this, so we have, at least it's clear to me that we have our three priorities, which you maybe were fuzzy about coming into the meeting, but it's clear those were the right ones. We can call those out in a different mechanism, but with an updated plan of like what our priorities are right now for going forward for the next several months. We have a bunch of updates and work that's gonna occur. Wes, when you and I do our planning for the upcoming meeting, we'll make sure that we work with police officer that'll be visiting us, right, to have a few clear asks of what we want, right, which will ultimately focus on the information gaps that we don't currently have. And then I think it'll give us the direction that we need to take action, writing news articles, getting involved, planning for traffic calming measures and so forth. Any final thoughts on where we go from here? I feel good about it. So to wrap it up, thank you to the two working pairs for your work. It's super helpful. It is moving us along. I feel like we're actually making traction and we're at more clarity. And the meeting in August will be able to take more actions and get things done. Moving on to the next piece, which will help fill in some more gaps. City staff updates. Okay, this is Stephen and Art. No particular order. It is 2 hours into the meeting. Do people need a bio break? We want to proceed forward.
I'll make this quick.
Okay. If you need one, please take one and return.
Maybe if we don't go there, we'll be
Yeah,
quicker
let's
meeting.
get it done, yeah.
Crystal Ray, right now we are finalizing the contract to have guardrails removed and replaced. Contractor has been identified. We've been working with them to get our contract and our the insurance and bond requirements satisfied. I reviewed the contract yesterday, so we'll be sending them out to the contractor for execution. Soon as that is done, they'll come out and remove and replace the guardrail. Right now, we don't know exactly when they'll be scheduling us, but soon as they do, we will let the commissioners know.
Where did the guardrails at?
On Crystal Ray.
Crystal Ray Drive, that was a
Crystal Ray.
that was a CIP project for it. So,
Okay.
but now,
Yeah, it's fine.
yeah, it means.
Fremont Bridge, we have been in this extensive discussion with the state water board as well as US Fish and Wildlife / California Fish and Wildlife. We're come to an impasse where they're wanting us to mitigate our erosion control measure. So as soon as that is resolved, we're trying to issue a change order to a consultant to look at various mitigation measures to do erosion controls underneath the bridge. They're asking us to place hydro seed and put vegetation in the banks. We have done that. Unfortunately, underneath the bridge is a perpetual darkness where there's constant shade. So vegetation is not handling it very well. So it's very difficult to grow. So we're working through the process right now. Hechechi, which is on Los Altos, the contract has been awarded. We're trying to satisfy the SFPUC's insurance and bond requirement, which is a lot higher than what we originally assumed that they were going to ask for. They have raised the amount from $2 and $4 to $3 and $6 million. So we're trying to work through the process of us meeting satisfy their insurance requirement, so we could be issued a permit to proceed with construction. Right now, we are in a bidding phase for our annual streets project. We issued our first addendum today, and I just identified something that I totally forgot, so I have to issue an addendum first thing tomorrow morning. Right now, the bid is gonna be opening July 2nd, and we are on schedule to go to council on July 8th, before they go on their summer break. They will not be coming back until August 28th. So we have to have it awarded, otherwise we'll not get a lot of our construction started and hopefully accomplished on some of the project location that's relatively very close to school. So we're very aware of it, and I beefed up the language to try to entice them to start those locations first. So hopefully we'll be getting in and out. Like I stated earlier, we are in the process of getting our 26, 27 annual streets project started. Because we have already identified all the locations for the next 4 years, we're implementing that. We are also, or I will have to also reassess one of the location that recently came up. Miramonte was not on the radar because of some recent construction and some deterioration of the road. I may have to try to figure out how I can include that in the near term, in the next 3 years, instead of 5 years out. So again, that is also one of the locations that's identified as a safe route to school. So that's something that I'm currently evaluating. What else? San Antonio, as I stated earlier, I've submitted all the necessary paperwork to the Caltrans. They have asked for a few corrections on my form. So I will, now that the bid is out, I can now shift gears and try to finalize the information they're requesting. And hopefully within the next month, I'll get authorization to proceed with that project.
Can you share rough timelines going forward, what that would look like for like potential start date? I'm
still trying to get
I'm
I'm still trying to get all the authorization ready to go. Secure a consultant by end of this year, so that first thing next year, we start doing public outreach. I'm estimating the public outreach is gonna have to be very extensive, since San Antonio is a very, is one of the major thoroughfare that goes east to west. So I currently estimate about a year with public outreach. So we'll probably start going through that process at the end of this, hopefully secure consultant by the end of this year. The downtown parking lot 4, 5, and 6, as I stated, we are implementing some of the stuff that Commissioner Katz has already brought up. We have completed all the surveys. We have a layout that is acceptable to the downtown and to the downtown, that they have already been kind of given a preview of what the layout's going to be like. We're kind of changing the circulation in the parking lot to try to align with the driveways, so that we could try to bring, if you go into lot 4, you could put easy to drive into lot 5, lot 6. So we're trying to align a lot of the driveways instead of having to do this going one way, turn, and go another way for another run, one way, turn and go to another runway, one way. So we're trying to align all that stuff. So we are currently working on that. The timeline on that right now is to be done with the design by about January, February, with the understanding we're going out to bid by March, so that we could try to get the project started by April before our farmers market start. This is best worst case scenario is what I'm looking at. I think those are it with respect to the projects. Am I missing anything, Art?
No, I think that's it. It's on the list.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. So, I know that at 40 Main Street, they're starting construction on a 4-story condo building. It's gonna be commercial on floor 1. And the upper stories.
Is that lot 7 and 8?
Hmm?
Is that lot 7 and 8? I guess.
Not in a parking lot. It's where the Christian Science Monitor is currently. It's right in the first block of Main Street, number 40. And there's
Did you get into the
there are, I
entrance
think,
versus-
2 buildings there where they're building. It was one that was contentious, and the city lost the lawsuit on the height of the building. And I know they're breaking ground in 2 weeks. 40 Main.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay,
wondering,
that, okay.
That project. yeah.
and
That
I'm
project.
wondering whether that's going to require any kind of
It's,
either sidewalk or street.
I don't know what
Or
condition
our
we're,
commission should be involved at all.
I mean, that's development.
Yes.
So the planning department has already taken care of all that.
Couple of questions. One is, just for the 2025 plan is going out to bid. 100% plans are done, 90+% plans are done. Are they available for review?
Sure. You're asking.
No, I don't want to make it a discussion item, go into detail. but
No, this is just a presentation by staff.
Yeah, log into the.
Thank you.
This is 20590.
There's plans for the mill and fill. It's been out today.
Hold on, for some reason it's not coming up.
It'd just be easier to email it to us.
Yeah, you can share with us if that's better. That's fine.
No, it's one reason, just. I've been having some issues with my computer today.
Just email
We
it.
don't need to go through it now.
Or provide a link.
Yeah, if there's a way you can share it.
That's a big file, so.
For time and
Can put-
unless there's something particular that you need to highlight.
No, I mean,
It's on the agenda.
it's basically,
I can share you the file because it's a big file. so,
Yeah, it is a big file.
I gotta share it, so, we'll see.
I'll share the file. Okay, that's fine, that's okay. And then the other question I had, I mean, I'd be curious to just see what the final striping looks like with all the inputs that we have provided. For us to not review it, but at least have it.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Gotcha.
The other question I had was on, you had a report on, let's see.
Crystal Ridge Drive, Fremont Ridge, Hetch Hetchy, Annual Street Building.
I think those are all the projects. The last thing is the e-bike ordinance that was.
oh, the e-bike ordinance.
That was the last.
That's the one you guys were asking about.
thing.
The staff
We
report,
already had the, you gave an update on the bike.
No, it
No, it wasn't. it was let me just kind of give a quick update. I took the consideration of what is recommended at planning, the Police Street Commission, and I made it very clear what is being requested by you to city council. I also made sure that they understood where the police department's concerns were. The concerns were if it's just strictly in the downtown area, it would have been very difficult for them to enforce. Because if they cross the line, how do we enforce it? Yeah. So the police department also noticed that there was extensive violation throughout the whole city. We also heard a lot of cry from residents, basically saying that don't just do it downtown. We want it in the whole city. So based on that, we did adopt it for the citywide. We did put some exemptions on where the e-bike and bicycle can be on the sidewalk. They consist of basically, if there is hazard on the road, you can be on the sidewalk. I originally, when I presented the e-bike ordinance, I did also put a provision saying that kids 12 and younger could be on the sidewalk. Council direction was, let's not put that in there. So they had to strike it out. But what the understanding from the police department that they are going to use their common sense in enforcement, in the fact that if little Susie wants to ride her bike on the sidewalk and she has her training wheel on, they're not going to enforce it. That's why the ordinance also does say if you do ride your bike, you have to use your due diligence, be cautious when riding on the sidewalk. It was just for that very specific reason. I also did make sure that council was aware that the Complete Street Commission did not want to duplicate the state law. The police department was very passionate about wanting to duplicate that, because if we went and just identified or if we did not include the state law into our ordinance, the police department only option they had was to issue a citation, is a moving violation citation. So this ticket would have gone to traffic court. And we would have absolutely no control about the penalty that would be imposed on the individual. So by mimicking that requirement to our code, and then we also included a fine structure on it. Now the police department has the flexibility of, if it is severe enough that they could go cite them under the vehicle code so that they now have to go to the traffic court. But what they want to do is they want to be able to have this experience as an educational opportunity. So by having this ordinance adopted by us, now we could say, okay, you broke the rules, but it's not severe. We want to use this encounter as an education component. We could give you a warning, or we could fine you first, which is $50. We made sure that when we wrote the ordinance, it was not punitive. We wanted to make sure that it was an opportunity for the officers to engage the public. So it also gives them flexibility of how they enforce the rules. Prior to this, the police have been enforcing the rules, not as much as they'd like. But when the additional resource come in, they are going to try to enforce this even more. So that was the major change between what is being recommended by the Complete Street Commission and the direction that the council wanted. And it was approved last night, 3-2. Yesterday was the first reading. So once the council does the second reading, the ordinance does go into effect 30 days after that. So it'll be what, July, first week of August.
Is that the next meeting that the council has?
Yeah. So that's one of the things I have to do is another step. But yeah, those are the major things. The council was very concerned about. There are two things that they were concerned about. They were very concerned about the fact that we have bicycle and e-bikes on the same location as a lot of our residents who are elderly. They don't have the mobility. But at the same time, the council was very concerned about we don't want to, if there's a health and safety issue, that they don't have the flexibility to be on the sidewalk. So they're low speeds. Yeah, they're low speeds.
So in the case of a three-wheel adaptable bike, is that what you're talking about?
It's, how do I say this? Shouldn't answer the question, but let me just kind of clarify. Yeah, this is just a staff report, so it's
Sure.
there's no Q&A, but the to answer your question regarding the three-wheel bikes, those are, how do I say it? Those are classified as a bicycle. As long as the code says it is classified as a bicycle, it meets these requirements. So it's very clear on the ordinance on the definition. We basically adopted the state definition. So that was what was adopted by council last night.
This is, just if I have to come make a quick comment, it's very similar to what Mountain View has in their code. There's a lot of similarity, I think.
I look, I did an extensive look for the city of Mountain View. They don't have, if there is an ordinance, I cannot find it in their code.
It's in multiple places through their code. You gotta go through it.
Yeah, because I've done, when I was,
Could you get him the info of the rest of us?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's, you have to read the multiple places in the code.
yeah, because I've spent a good
Yeah.
hour or two looking through the code. I've looked at Mountain View, Cupertino, Sunnyvale. I've looked at Los Gatos, I've looked at San Jose, I've looked at Palo Alto, I've looked at Stanford, I've looked at everywhere. And it's all mixed match.
I'm just saying.
I was just gonna say,
I did not. So what I did was I downloaded the code and did a search for e-bikes and bikes. And it's multiple places it's spread.
I was just gonna say, if you wanna know the details of the ordinance, it's published in the agenda packet from the council meeting last night, and you can read right through the ordinance itself. And the article in today's town crier was pretty comprehensive. The only two things that Stephen did mention was that there are two situations that are covered. One is helmeting for kids under 17. And the other is multiple riders on bikes or e-bikes that are not designed for two riders is also a violation.
So can you go through the list again that you had?
Crystal Ray Drive, guardrail work, Fremont Bridge, Hetch Hetchy, Annual Street. Leading out July 2nd, Council July 8th, 2025-2026 street project, and adding on Miramonte, San Antonio efforts for reconstruction, and then downtown parking lot 456.
I did have a question about the 456 downtown parking lot. You said there were some changes to circulations in the parking lot.
Mhm.
Do you see, I mean, I'm assuming that the assessment says there are no impact on traffic circulation.
Yeah.
or
They're
any
actually
other-
trying to improve the circulation.
So there's not much then for the commission to provide inputs on. That plan is already final,
The layout is final.
the layout is final, and is that published somewhere?
No, it's not.
The planning commission,
This is just basically it's a grading plan, it's a maintenance issue.
oh, it's listed as a maintenance issue.
Yeah, so this is strictly as a maintenance project, so. It does not really require public outreach.
It'll be published at some point in the cities as a project. Okay, that's all I had, no other questions.
Any other commissioner questions or comments? Thank you for your report, super helpful, great to get insights. Moving on to commissioner reports. Anyone have a commissioner report? Anyone?
I got a bunch of items, but I'll go last. Anybody else has some? So I had a question about people posting private street signs on what appears to be city streets. I found at least 4 examples. Peterson Court, Colonial Oaks Drive, May Lane, and Belgian Drive.
Can you clarify your question? Is this?
People posting signs, they appear to maybe be reasonable, but it's not clear at all.
Like, no parking zone, that kind of thing, or is that?
Private street, no school parking.
I see.
And I can't find anything that legally backs up that it's a private street.
So is your question, what is the city's stance how is this enforceable or not
This is-
enforceable?
This is illegal.
Does it talk about it? Because it's just a report, so it's technically we're not supposed to talk about it.
Tony, if you would like this to be on the future agenda item, you can let us know, we can go into it further.
Yeah,
It'd be
like
good to
this
know.
Similar question on Matt's Court. I was cycling around and found that there are several places where we have bicycle stencils that are not actually on top of the sensors. At stoplights. This is not helpful. Item 4, I went and rode El Camino, all of the new stuff. I was very pleasantly surprised by the new bollards. Thank you very much. Kudos to the county on this.
Caltrans.
Caltrans, okay.
Yeah.
Kudos to that.
You did that too.
They did make a handful of mistakes I wanted to call out. At El Monte northbound, they have a conflict zone that goes perpendicular across El Camino. That's not what the bike traffic is gonna do. Those people are gonna be turning left onto El Camino, and the conflict zone really should curve around. As painted, it makes no sense. Same intersection, coming to El Monte southbound, there's a slip lane turning right onto El Monte, and that creates a conflict zone, and there's only sharrows there. It would be really good to have some stripes across where people are going to go straight down El Camino. Lastly, at San Antonio, I realize space is tight there, but what's there is not very helpful. There's just a bunch of sharrows. Northbound at the intersection on El Camino, turning right to San Antonio, there's a right turn lane there. There's a big green box for bikes to stop in, but that box is full lane width. And that encourages people to stop in the green box, but that blocks people from making the right-hand turn. That's probably overly generous. If we restricted that a little bit, get bicyclists over to the left, then we could have people turn right. Cyclists to the left.
What was the last one? Where was the last
San Antonio.
one?
Uh,
No, it's before, North 4.
Yeah.
It's in front of that shopping center.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Wes? Any other reports?
Nothing else from me.
Thank you. Tony, for your update, all super helpful. I don't know how we would like make recommendations or suggestions short of having images or it being reported to city staff. I guess my question is, city staff, how would feedback like Tony's be considered for review, either from city locations or from Caltrans?
Those are not in our right of way. We have no jurisdiction over it. All we do is let Caltrans.
Do you have a recommendation on how Tony's feedback in?
Well, I haven't gone out there yet to look
Okay.
at what's going.
Okay.
So, I mean, given those locations, I'll go out there and take a look at it and make a recommendation to Caltrans. It's ultimately up to them what they.
Maybe make a recommendation to email your feedback.
I already sent the card.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
If they would, the other ones where you have the street signs would be helpful. So you get police department input on that too, if they're illegal.
They know.
It wouldn't be a PD issue. It'd be a
Oh, it
code
wouldn't?
enforcement.
Is he who
A code enforcement.
I think those are, some of those streets that you mentioned are private streets. So they are private street, they're not city streets.
how would we know is one of the questions.
What's up?
How would you know if it's a private street or not?
That's where there's a sign that says private street.
Well, anybody can put
We
that
have
on
no
there.
jurisdiction over those private streets.
Or- Right, but how do you know that somebody, I guess we're saying is.
We have a
how does
list of
anybody
all
know?
the streets and it shows where the private streets and where other public streets are. And the one that actually Tony mentioned are private streets. Matt's Court is a private street.
Really?
Yes. I could give you the list of the streets. It just shows you all the private streets and then the public streets. We have
Is
that
that-
list.
Is that published somewhere publicly?
No,
Okay.
from an internal. That's what I mean. I can send you a list if you want the list.
Yes, please.
If you want to know what the private streets are in the city of Los Altos, I can give you that.
Yes, please. I can get that out onto the internet and do useful things with it.
Okay.
Yeah, there are.
It'd be good to know that.
Yeah, this street next to my house is a private street. and
Exactly.
just like-
There's a few here and there. There's private streets. That private street. That's how that's how it was made up.
Not mine, but I live on it.
In Los Altos, they have private streets. They look like regular streets, but they're private streets. We've been notified by these residents that stay off their private streets.
That's
So
tenant street.
just to let you know, that's what it is. So we know where the private streets are. Just to let you know, that's how some of these residents are telling us, stay off our private streets. So
Really?
we gotta know our private streets.
Oh, they're.
Just I'm telling you, so we know where the private streets are, and they'll tell us if they're in their property.
Yeah.
We do have a list of the private streets.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope you don't know where ours is, because you guys maintain it beautifully.
Is it a private street? Is it a private street or?
He says it is.
I think it is.
I'm gonna move us forward for moving from discussion to report.
We don't touch private streets.
Tony, you follow accordingly, write an email.
I'll
and
give
we
you,
can
I'll
proceed.
give you.
We just publish dollars.
What's that?
So with,
Send dollars.
If you want, if that's what you want, if you want those lists.
moving us forward, since commissioner reports are completed, any potential future agenda items that want to be called out by commissioners? We have a few already listed, called them out prior to the meeting. Wes, you and I can work on that, make sure it's clear and we're prepared for, I think most importantly.
We'll probably meet,
Sergeant.
we'll probably meet like in August, beginning of August to discuss it. Take a break in July, everybody needs a break, and then in August, we'll get back and do.
Sounds great. Well, with that, we are at adjournment at 8:45 PM. I don't think I need a motion for that one, do I? No. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Wes.
Good night, everybody.
Wes, what time is it there?
11:45 East Coast time.
Good job, man.
Go to bed.
Thanks for hanging with us.
Bye, Wesley.
Really appreciate it. Bye.